Chapter 788. Everyone stopped. Many of them were still in a daze. Someone said, "Why did we stop? I was having a blast." He wanted to continue complaining, but someone beside him kicked him and said, "Don't make a sound. Listen to the order." Wu Yang said, "When I give the order, everyone will attack together. We will form a circle with a Feng inside. Then listen to my command. Understood?" Everyone shouted, "Understood." Wu Yang said, "Are you all ready? Surround the station. Yuko, where are you going? Also by Tianming, why are you squatting on the ground?" Bai Tianming said embarrassedly, "I'm planning to attack a Feng's legs." Everyone laughed. Wu Yang could only shake his head and smile bitterly. He said, "All right, everyone is ready. Ready, fight." It was really uniform. As long as one could stand in the circle, they would either use their fists or kicks. Only Yuko would charge head first. An earth-shattering explosion sounded. Lei Xingfeng did not move, but the others could not take it. This attack caused all kinds of lights to flash and the air to explode. Even the people around were affected, and a group of people was overturned. Lei Xingfeng was still pondering. This attack was a little interesting, but it was far from enough. It seemed that it was difficult to test his true strength in the mirror world. There was no point in continuing. "All right, thank you everyone. The test is over." Most of the people fell to the ground. One by one, they withdrew their real bodies and got up. This attack had let them know how strong a true expert was. This time, even Wu Yang shook his head and sighed. He was not jealous of Lei Xingfeng, but he was thinking that if he met an expert like Lei Xingfeng outside, there would be no way to fight. From the fact that Lei Xingfeng did not fight back, it was clear that the gap was too big. If Lei Xingfeng fought back, who could withstand it? Everyone had an embarrassed look on their faces. This was too embarrassing. There were so many people fighting against one person. Not only was he not moved, he was also overturned. Lei Xingfeng also retracted his real body and recalled Lei Yin. He was very satisfied with his performance this time. Although he did not test how strong he was, it was not bad. There would be plenty of opportunities to test it in the future. If he wanted to find an enemy, it would be easy. Wu Yang came to Lei Xingfeng's side and said, "I don't think we'll be able to find out anything. You need a strong enemy to know your true level." Lei Xingfeng spread out his hands and said, "You can't always find an enemy just to test your level, right? Forget it. I'm not in a hurry anyway. Let's leave it at that for now." Wu Yang laughed and said, all right. A Feng is so powerful now. Our entire hidden sect can't beat you, haha." He was actually very pleased. With such an expert around, the hidden sect would be as stable as a mountain. Although everyone was embarrassed, they quickly felt relieved. Lei Xingfeng was not an outsider, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Everyone followed Lei Xingfeng back to the wooden shed in the courtyard. However, Lei Xingfeng did not sit in the wooden shed for long. Soon, he returned to his room. Even if the attack just now did not shake him, he still gained a lot of experience. Compared to his previous combat experience, he gained a lot of experience. After releasing Lei Yin again and holding it in his hand, Lei Xingfeng's eyes emitted a silver light. He wanted to check how much energy Lei Yin had consumed. The result surprised Lei Xingfeng. There was no consumption. In other words, there was no consumption of energy at all. In the past, once he released his real body, he would have to burn energy crystals. The amount of energy consumed was quite frightening. If he wanted to fight, he would have to consume a lot of energy crystals. High-level cultivators were simply accumulated with materials and energy. Lei Xingfeng carefully pondered. Why was there no consumption of energy? This was completely illogical. However, after observing Lei Yin, he quickly found the answer. Energy circulation. Between the two Lei Yin, there was actually an energy circulation. The loss of energy was almost negligible. Lei Xingfeng could not help but be overjoyed. The double-layered Lei Yin actually had such a function. It was simply too amazing. After careful observation, Lei Xingfeng discovered a new restriction. He did not know what restriction it was, but he knew the function of this restriction. The function of this restriction was to exchange energy. Between the two Lei Yin, they could exchange energy with each other. For example, the real body's energy was not released but sealed. If it attacked, it would consume a certain amount of energy. If it defended, it would consume almost no energy. Unless the opponent's attack was especially strong, it would consume a portion of energy. This restriction was also naturally formed. This restriction inspired Lei Xingfeng greatly, so he began to study it carefully. At the very least, he had to figure out the principle, or rather, how to save energy. After studying it for a few days, Lei Xingfeng found that the complexity of this restriction was rarely seen. First of all, he was sure that this was a single restriction, not a compound restriction. It seemed that this restriction controlled energy. However, he still could not figure out how to control it. This aroused Lei Xingfeng's competitive spirit. He originally planned to go to the fantasy sky realm, but he temporarily stopped. If he could not figure out this restriction, he would not even be able to sleep, although he rarely slept now. He wanted to study this restriction. Once he entered the restriction, Lei Xingfeng did not sleep or rest. He analyzed and probed bit by bit. As time passed, he gradually began to understand some things. However, this restriction was indeed very complicated. Lei Xingfeng used a full 10 days to figure out the general situation. After finding a few breakthroughs, Lei Xingfeng's research speed suddenly accelerated. In the end, he overcame the difficulties and learned this restriction. Lei Xingfeng sighed and said to himself, "So the real place to learn restrictions is in my own seal. This is really King magical." He found all kinds of restrictions in Lei Yin. There were familiar, ordinary restrictions, spatial restrictions that he had learned before, and energy circulation restrictions that he had just learned. There were all kinds of restrictions, just like a big treasure house. Lei Xingfeng closed his eyes and recalled. He used to pay attention to Lei Yin in the past, but there were not so many restrictions. After thinking for a long time, he still could not understand the main points. Just when he was depressed, suddenly a light flashed in his mind. He suddenly realized that the restrictions in Lei Yin in the past were very rigid. There were many restrictions, but the types were very few. This was not the problem of Lei Yin, but his own problem. When he advanced to the advanced level and began to use 2 layers of Lei Yin, the world changed. Because of his change, the Lei Yin also changed. This opened a door to an unknown cultivation direction. Lei Xingfeng gradually understood that as Lei Yin grew, there would be more restrictions in Lei Yin. There would be more restrictions that he did not know about. Furthermore, as he succeeded in using 3 layers of Lei Yin and 4 layers of Lei Yin, he would be able to learn more restrictions. As for why Lei Xingfeng did not continue to stack Lei Yin, it was because after hooking up with Lei Yin, he knew that he could not be anxious. He had to adjust the 2 layers of Lei Yin before he could attempt to hook up with the second layer of Lei Yin and form 3 layers of Lei Yin. Lei Yin did not have many years to grow, and Lei Xingfeng did not dare to recklessly hook up with other Lei Yin. Therefore, he temporarily put it aside and no longer considered hooking up with Lei Yin. The only thing that he would not put aside was the Fei and the Thunderflower. Even if he took in Lei Yin, Lei Xingfeng would still need to pay attention to it. After all, the Fei was still young, and the Thunderflower had not matured. They both required his meticulous care. Furthermore, the Fei was in Lei Yin and would be affected by Lei Yin. In addition, it had also been nourished by Lei Xingfeng's essence blood. Once it broke away from the big thunder crystal, it would treat Lei Yin as its home and affect the entire Lei Yin's development. With a thunder-type Fei, there was still not much of an effect, but as the Fei grew, Lei Yin's growth would be worth looking forward to. Lei Xingfeng could vaguely feel that the pagoda-shaped 7 layers of Lei Yin that he had obtained this time seemed to be fundamentally different from his own cultivation method. The reason why he had worked so hard to construct his own 2 layers of Lei Yin was because he could feel this difference and could not help but continue to pursue it. Lei Xingfeng originally thought that there was no way out, but unexpectedly, a new world had appeared. He was very satisfied in his heart. Finally, he had temporarily put everything down. Lei Xingfeng planned to leave the mirror realm and return to the dark river from before. Lei Xingfeng called the servant over and informed Lei Xingyao to come over. Standing in the courtyard, Lei Xingyao hurried over, and the blackbird also flew over. It had followed him once and obtained quite a lot of benefits. The black bird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder, and its tone was extremely flattering. "Ga, you're going again. This bird is also following. Ga, bird's master. You are a great person. Ga." Lei Xingfeng said, "Shut up. If you don't know how to speak, don't speak nonsense." The black bird cawed and did not dare to continue speaking. It immediately used its beak to comb Lei Xingfeng's hair. This was one of its methods of flattery. Lei Xingyao giggled. She felt that it was very interesting to see the blackbird being deflated. Usually, when she was with the blackbird, this bird's mouth was simple and cheap, and it often argued with Lin Ling. Lei Xingyao sometimes felt very helpless. Lei Xingfeng said, "Little sister, I plan to enter the fantasy sky realm. Do you want to come with me?" Lei Xingyao said happily, Okay, I'll come with you." Lei Xingfeng said, "This time is a bit different. The place we went last time was not dangerous. This time, even I don't know what kind of danger there is. I can't protect you." Lei Xingyao raised her head proudly and said, "I'm a middle-level monarch king. I'm so powerful. I can defend against danger." Lei Xingfeng was a wood element and had a strong defense. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was not worried and said, "Let's go." As he spoke, he waved his hand towards the wooden hut. The people in the wooden hut looked on enviously as the brother and sister disappeared. They also wanted to go, but in their hearts, they knew that if they followed, they would only implicate Lei Xingfeng. Moreover, they would not be safe. Therefore, none of them would suggest to follow Lei Xingfeng. Even Wu Yang, Guqi, and Thunderstorm would not suggest this. Chapter 789. They came to the underground river again. This was the place where Lei Xingfeng met Yu Jian. Rainy gave him the thunder attribute spiritual item and solved his problem. To be honest, he was quite grateful to her. This was Xian Yao's second time seeing the underground river. However, the last time she saw it was in a wide area, but the river here made her feel cold. The main thing was that the waves on the river were bright red, and under the illumination of the lightning, the color looked horrifying. Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't go near the riverbank. There are blood bugs and bloodthirsty bugs in the river." Hearing this name, Xian Yao felt her hair stand on end. She asked, "Is it dangerous?" Lei Xingfeng said, "As long as they release their real bodies, they won't be able to do anything to us. However, if they release their real bodies, it is indeed a little dangerous." Once Xian Yao heard this, she released her real body. Her real body was different. It was a tree, an emerald green tree. It could be said that it was very beautiful. The leaves were like jade, sparkling and translucent, with a faint green glow. Lei Xingfeng stood at the side and felt extremely comfortable. The green glow from the tree shone on his body, making his whole body feel warm. Lei Xingfeng believed that if he was injured, his injuries would recover quickly under this tree. This was Xian Yao's special ability. Xian Yao said, "Are we safe now?" Lei Xingfeng suddenly thought of a problem and said, "Little sis, if you release your real body, how are you going to walk?" This was a tree. A tree didn't have legs, only roots. Xian Yao said, "It's easy to walk. I'll walk for you." Lei Xingfeng only took one look, and his eyeballs almost fell out. How was this walking? This was jumping. That extremely beautiful, emerald-like tree was jumping forward, but its speed was so slow that it made people feel hopeless. Lei Xingfeng said, "Stop, stop." Xian Yao said, "How is it?" Lei Xingfeng's face turned bitter. He said, "Little sis, this speed is not good. It's too slow. Once we meet an enemy, we won't be able to deal with them." Xian Yao said anxiously, "Then what do we do? I only know how to do this. Brother, you won't chase me back, right? Brother." Lei Xingfeng was at his wit's end. He said, "How about this? You wait here. Don't release your real body. The blackbird is above. I think your defense is fine. Wait here for me. If it takes too long and you're impatient, you can go back, okay?" Lei Xingfeng could only coax her, so he could only let Xian Yao and wait. Blood beast. In the river. Xian Yao asked in shock, "What is that?" Xian Feng spoke, "It's a very strange beast, but you don't have to be afraid after activating your true body. Furthermore, you don't lack energy crystals. Even if you use a few large ones, it'll be worth it. At least it'll be safe. The black bird said, "Don't worry. With a bird here, everything will be fine." Lei Xingfeng shook his head. Although he hadn't brought the black bird for a long time, Lei Xingfeng didn't think highly of its power. Just one look made the black bird anxious. It cried out, "At least I can sense danger." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, I didn't say anything. You protect Yao Yao." He gave it a task to prevent it from crying out. The black bird was very straightforward. "Don't worry, unless the bird is dead. As long as the bird is still breathing, it will protect you." Ga Xen Yao said, "I knew bird Bude was the best." The black bird immediately became arrogant. It stood on the tree with its head held high. In the end, it was kicked down by Lin Ling. Lin Ling said, "Damn bird, go away." In Xin Yao's real body, Lin Ling's power was abnormally strong. The black bird had suffered a lot, so even if it was kicked down by Lin Ling, it didn't dare to say anything. It just flapped its wings and flew to another branch. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about Lin Ling and the black bird's actions. He said, "I'm going in. You wait here." Xin Yao agreed and jumped to the stone wall. She didn't want to stand on the riverbank. Luckily, there was still some distance from the riverbank. She felt more comfortable. The black bird stood on the tree. The top of the tree was occupied by Lin Ling. It could only stand on the second level. If it dared to fly up, Lin Ling would dare to kick it down. Lei Xingfeng looked at the restriction not far away. He was very emotional. The last time he wanted to go in here, a series of things happened. When everything was settled, his power had increased by a lot. A long time had passed. In the end, he still wanted to break through this restriction because he knew that no one had broken through it. The probability of finding treasures was very high. After carefully observing again, Lei Xingfeng finally broke in. This time, he still didn't release his real body. Relying on his deep knowledge of restrictions, he avoided the restriction nodes while looking for the restriction blank spots. He knew that there should be very few restriction blank spots here. It was mainly because the space here was limited. After the restriction was formed, it was naturally very compact. Luckily, there were no traces of a space restriction here. This made Lei Xingfeng feel very relieved. Even if he encountered a space restriction, he would still be nervous. Space restriction could be said to be mysterious and unpredictable. It was very difficult to grasp. If he didn't have a lot of confidence, he wouldn't touch it if he could. Of course, if he had to enter the space restriction formation, Lei Xingfeng wasn't afraid. After all, there was a big difference between knowing and not knowing. His biggest assurance was that he wouldn't be trapped by the space restriction. Then, it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape. The more he understood the space restriction, the more Lei Xingfeng was afraid. Therefore, he had the idea of not touching it if he could. He tried his best not to come into contact with the space restriction. After walking for a while, Lei Xingfeng found that the restriction nodes were more and more concentrated. It was also more and more difficult to avoid them. After retreating some distance, Lei Xingfeng felt a little better. He realized that it was very difficult to pass through this restriction without touching the restriction nodes. Fortunately, he still wanted to try his real body. Therefore, he wanted to try the feeling of breaking through. He originally despised this kind of breaking through without any skills. Now, he had no choice but to do so. When he released Lei Yin, he revealed his real body. In an instant, the entire restriction formation shook. Because Lei Xingfeng's real body was much bigger than before, more restriction nodes were touched. Almost at the same time, when he released his real body, the restriction formation was stimulated to operate at full power. Lei Xingfeng's real body was 200 meters tall. When he looked at the restriction world with his real body, he felt that it was very narrow. Because of the size of his real body, he stepped into the underground river. Countless attacks began to form. Lei Xingfeng didn't attack. Instead, he calmly observed. For someone who was proficient in restrictions like him, he wouldn't attack carelessly. It was meaningless. He needed to find the key point of the restrictions operation, which was the restriction hub. Only by attacking here would he have the best effect. Countless attacks finally landed on his real body. In an instant, Lei Xingfeng only felt a slight tremor. Nothing happened that worried him. In the past, he was most afraid that his real body would collapse after an attack. Now, relying on the operation of the double-layered restriction, energy could flow out of Lei Yin smoothly. The most miraculous thing was the energy consumption. After receiving a wave of attacks, his real body's energy consumption was very low. Lei Yin was able to support his real body with ease. This made Lei Xingfeng feel very gratified. Finally, he didn't have any scruples and could fight without restraint. Soon, he found the location of a restriction hub. Lei Xingfeng smashed his fist at it. This effect made Lei Xingfeng dumbfounded. With one punch, the stone wall exploded. In an instant, a big hole appeared. Even if there was no lightning, this power was still frightening. Lei Xingfeng himself didn't realize that his strength had reached a terrifying level. After a few consecutive punches, the surrounding attacks were almost all swept away. By the time the restriction regathered its energy and launched another attack, Lei Xingfeng had already destroyed 3 restriction hubs, causing the entire restriction's power to decrease. Lei Xingfeng thought to himself, "No wonder I saw the restriction being swept away so easily. With their strength, they didn't even care about this kind of restriction. If it wasn't for the space restriction, those 2 cultivators probably wouldn't be afraid of any attack-type restriction at all. But they probably didn't think that if you don't understand the space restriction, no matter how strong you are, if you can't hit the target, what's the use?" Punching and kicking, in less than half an hour, the entire restriction was destroyed by Lei Xingfeng. This was using his own strength to forcefully destroy a rather powerful restriction formation. This made Lei Xingfeng very proud. He knew very well how powerful this restriction formation was. Even if Xingfeng came, he might not have the ability to destroy the formation so quickly. When the last restriction hub was destroyed by Lei Xingfeng, the illusion brought by the restriction completely disappeared. He looked back and vaguely saw Lei Xingyao's real body, glowing green tree. He couldn't help but smile. He walked back with big strides. When he was near Lei Xingfeng, he put away his real body. Lei Xingyao was bored to death. She chatted with Blackbird and Lin Ling, seeing Lei Xingfeng come back. Lei Xingyao happily put away her real body. She went up and hugged Lei Xingfeng's arm. She said, "You're back so soon. Brother, is this restriction very bad?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's not bad at all. If it was before, I might have to spend more time and effort. Now it's not a big problem." He loved this little sister of his very much. At this time, there were only a few people that he cared about. Lei Xingyao was one of the most important people. So no matter when Lei Xingfeng spoke to Lei Xingyao, he was very gentle. He said, "It's okay. We can continue." Blackbird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and said, "Do you want the bird to scout the way?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Very good. You scout ahead. If there's any danger, tell us." Blackbird was very happy to receive the mission. However, it didn't know how dangerous this place was. It excitedly flapped its wings and said in the air, "The bird is going." Chapter 790. Lei Xingfeng and Xian Yao watched the blackbird fly along the underground river. Xian Yao asked, "There won't be any danger, right?" She had been with the blackbird for a long time, so she had some feelings for it. Especially when she was lonely, it was always the blackbird and Lin Ling who accompanied her. So she felt a bit uneasy. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "There will definitely be danger. We just have to see how the blackbird deals with it. As long as it's smart, it won't be a big problem." Xian Yao said, "Okay, I hope nothing happens to it." Lei Xingfeng said, "It won't. Let's follow it." The 2 of them quickly walked upstream along the riverbank. The blackbird happily flew in front. It felt very amazing. This was a place where most of the people in the secret sect couldn't come, but it came here and even took on the role of pathfinder. Just thinking about it made it proud. Didn't this mean that birds were stronger than humans? Lei Xingfeng and Xian Yao, the brother and sister, walked forward while talking and laughing. The 2 of them were very happy. Ever since Lei Xingfeng went out to explore alone, the 2 of them rarely met, and Xian Yao never bothered her brother. In order to keep up with Lei Xingfeng, she trained hard. Plus, by chance, she met Lin Ling, which completely changed her wooden seal. Only then did she have the hope of catching up with Lei Xingfeng. Walking along the river bank, they soon saw a light in front of them. Lei Xingfeng was dazed and said, "Can we go out?" Xi and Yao had less experience and said, "What?" Lei Xingfeng pointed at the light in the distance and said, "It seems like we can go out." The blackbird flew out first. This bird was too excited. It cried out and rushed out, crashing into the restriction. This place was densely covered with restrictions. If Lei Xingfeng was at the exit, he definitely wouldn't run out rashly. He would observe carefully before acting. But the blackbird didn't know that this place was so dangerous. It didn't care at all and crashed into the restriction outside the underground river. With the blackbird's speed, it crashed into the restriction. Although its body was small, flying in a straight line like this, it would at least crash into a few hundred restriction nodes. No matter what restriction it would be triggered. The entire restriction started to operate quickly, and then the blackbird was caught off guard. It was at a loss around it. It couldn't even tell which direction it was going. It cried out, and then the restriction attacks fell. The blackbird's black feathers stood on end. This guy's intuition was very strong. It immediately knew that this attack would definitely take its life. In an instant, the blackbird expanded. Its body reached dozens of meters in an instant, turning into a super big bird. As soon as Lei Xingfeng and Xian Yao came to the entrance of the cave, Lei Xingfeng's face changed. He cursed. This bastard, he still wants to explore? He directly crashed into the restriction formation. Little sister, quickly release your true body and wait for me here. Bird Bude is trapped in the restriction. Xian Yao immediately released her true body and saw Lin Ling swinging her legs on the treetops. She pouted and said, "I've seen stupid birds, but I've never seen such a stupid bird." Lei Xingfeng released his true body and charged into the formation. Under normal circumstances, he definitely wouldn't charge into the formation like this, but he knew that if he didn't hurry, the blackbird might die. No matter what, the blackbird was his partner. After so many years, he had already treated the blackbird as his family. He could bully the blackbird, and it was a kind of pleasure, but he would never endanger the blackbird's life. No matter what, he had to save it. With a loud bang, Lei Xingfeng crashed into the formation. If it was other cultivators, unless they quickly broke the formation, it would be very difficult to find the person or bird that was trapped. Because once you entered the restriction formation, no matter how you entered, you would have to face the illusion formation. What you saw was only what the restriction showed you. Similarly, you wouldn't be able to see the person or bird that was trapped. But Lei Xingfeng was completely different. He had a pair of magical eyes that could directly see through the restriction. This was also one of the reasons why he was so proficient in restriction. In just a short few seconds, the blackbird went through a life and death trial. Although its body had grown larger and its defense had increased, the area it was attacked by was also larger. Fortunately, this was a rare water-type restriction. Streams of water wrapped around it. This kind of attack was very bearable for the blackbird, but it could not move. The streams of water were like vines that wrapped around the blackbird, as if they wanted to strangle the blackbird. This kind of attack was very strange. If one was trapped by the water, then as time passed, they would eventually become a corpse. The blackbird's strength was considered good in the secret sect, but it was really not enough in the fantasy sky realm. It was entangled by the water and cried out. It kept releasing electric current, but the electric current couldn't be stopped. It could only consume some water, but couldn't solve the problem and couldn't escape. When Lei Xingfeng found the blackbird, he heard it shouting, "Help, wah wah wah. Annoying water. Ah wah wah jie. The bird is dying. Come and save the bird." The water caused the blackbird's feathers to stand up and fly everywhere. The blackbird was in an extremely sorry state. Lei Xingfeng suddenly appeared beside the blackbird. When the blackbird saw Lei Xingfeng, it was like seeing a family member. This guy actually cried and shouted, "Save the bird. The bird is going to be strangled to death." Xian Feng extended his hand and grabbed the water, lightly pulling it. With a pa-pa sound, the water that Hang Niao was helpless against broke apart and turned into a basin of clear water, drenching Hang Niao's body, turning him into a drowned bird. Then, Lei Xingfeng grabbed the blackbird and said, "Why aren't you shrinking?" The blackbird shrank and was instantly taken into Lei Xingfeng's real body. Putting the blackbird on the shoulder of the real body, Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Bird Beaut, aren't you very cautious? How did you crash into the restriction?" The blackbird put its small head directly into its wings and said, "I don't have the face to see people. Jing, this bird doesn't want to live anymore." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Don't want to live anymore? Who shouted for help just now?" The blackbird stammered and didn't know what to say. It could only endure being ridiculed by Lei Xingfeng. After saving the blackbird, Lei Xingfeng began to look for the restriction hub. He rampaged in the restriction formation. The blackbird was on the shoulder of Lei Xingfeng's real body, so it could see clearly. The blackbird had never admired anyone. Even if it followed Lei Xingfeng, it had never felt that Lei Xingfeng was great. But this time was different. It witnessed how Lei Xingfeng tyrannically broke through the formation. Ropes formed by water, like countless snakes, crazily wrapped around Lei Xingfeng. But none of the water ropes could stop Lei Xingfeng's footsteps. Seeing that the water ropes were useless, the whole restriction formation began to billow. In the eyes of the blackbird, except for Lei Xingfeng's real body, the surroundings were all water. The water reached Lei Xingfeng's waist. The turbid waves rose into the air, and the surging waves hit Lei Xingfeng's real body wave after wave. Lei Xingfeng didn't pay attention to it at all. He was still firmly moving in a certain direction, and his speed was quite fast. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng punched down, and the blackbird saw the whole water surface explode. It couldn't help but moan, "Oh, whoa, GAGA, amazing, admirable, this bird really didn't know. There was such a powerful one." This punch blew up a hole, and the blackbird instantly saw a boulder being punched into powder. Then Lei Xingfeng turned to the right, and not far away, he punched out again. Boom! The whole ground was shaking, and the blackbird was dazzled. It was terrible. It didn't know how deep Lei Xingfeng's strength was. Anyway, it believed that if it was hit by such a punch, there was no hope of survival at all, and it was estimated that it would be smashed. From then on, the blackbird began to revere Lei Xingfeng, and it was from the bottom of its heart. In a moment, Lei Xingfeng found a few restriction hubs. After destroying them, the power of the whole restriction formation dropped rapidly. The blackbird could clearly see that the water flow that was originally above Lei Xingfeng's waist was now only above his calves. The water flow also calmed down, and it could no longer raise huge waves. After Lei Xingfeng destroyed a few restriction hubs, he saw the main restriction hub, and with a kick, it was destroyed in an instant. Suddenly, the surrounding environment changed, and this was the original scenery. The crisscrossing underground river, but this should be called the Bright River. The surrounding was gray, and the river extended from afar. There were some low plants by the river, but under the operation of the restriction, they were basically all crushed, leaving only a small amount of green. It was still very desolate. Lei Xingfeng put away his real body, and the blackbird spread its wings and flew quickly towards Lei Xingyao. This guy was completely scared. Lei Xingyao saw that one person and one bird were safe, and immediately smiled. Only then did she put away her real body and quickly walked over. "Bird Beaut, why did you rush into the restriction formation?" The blackbird landed on Lei Xingyao's shoulder and said very wrongly, "How would this bird know? There was a restriction as soon as we came out. Who set this up? So wicked this bird almost died." Lin Ling popped her head out and said, "Stupid bird." The blackbird was not convinced. How is this bird stupid? Lin Ling scolded and shrank back, no longer caring about the blackbird. The blackbird was depressed to death and had a look of displeasure. Lei Xingyao comforted, Okay, isn't it fine with Big Brother here? There will be no problem." Lei Xingfeng said, "Bird Beaut is lucky. This time it was only a very weak water restriction. If it encountered a fire restriction, Bird Beaut would probably become a firebird barbecued meat." Lin Ling popped her head out and giggled before disappearing again. The black bird muttered, "Isn't there no fire?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Yes, there is no fire, only water. So you are a drowned bird, haha." The black bird said, "This bird wants to rest, no more chatting." Saying so, it hid its head in its wings and began to play dead. Lei Xingyao could not help but laugh nonstop. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "This is Bird Bude's ultimate move, the ultimate move, play dead." The black bird could not take it anymore and popped his head out and shouted, "This is rest, not play dead. Ga." Saying so, he continued to hide his head in his wings, out of sight, out of mind. The black bird felt that today was very unlucky. Chapter 791. Lei Xingfeng stopped teasing the bird and said, "What a pity. Maybe there is something in this seal, but with me breaking it like this, there is basically nothing left." Xian Yao was a little money grubber. She had been like this since she was young. It became a habit when she grew up. She said, what a pity." The black bird's body trembled. It did not dare to continue pretending to be dead. It stuck its head out and helped Xian Yao comb her hair, its mouth muttering, your hair is messy. Ga." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "You know to please, he." The black bird said righteously, "Helping Yao Yao, Jia, comb her hair is bird's responsibility." Although Xian Yao felt that it was a pity, she did not vent her anger on the blackbird. To her, she did not have the habit of venting her anger. Her nature was always very kind. Shaking her head, Xian Yao said, "Okay, since this place is very big, there should be a lot of things. Let's continue looking." Xian Feng spoke. "There's almost no need to rely on luck here. There are usually good things in the restrictions, or in places surrounded by restrictions. There are usually treasures. If you really want to talk about luck, then it's seeing something. If you're lucky, you might be able to find the treasure you need." Xian Yao, this little money grubber, smiled until her eyes narrowed. She looked like she was about to drool. Lei Xingfeng could not stand it anymore and said, "Rub, rub." Xian Yao asked curiously, What rub?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Rub your saliva. It is about to flow out." Brother, you are bad." The black bird could not hold it in and laughed out loud. As soon as it laughed, it knew it was not good. Its two wings were already hugging its head, but it was still lightly flicked by Xian Yao. The brother and sister laughed for a while. Then the black bird muttered, "You are not even allowed to laugh, AI?" Ga. It was very depressed. Lei Xingfeng stretched out a finger and rubbed the blackbird's head, saying, "It is not that you're not allowed to laugh. It is just that the time you laugh is not right." The blackbird originally wanted to explore the way, but thinking about the restriction just now, it finally chickened out and did not dare to mention this matter. Who knew that if it did not mention it, Lei Xingfeng would mention it? Lei Xingfeng said, "Bude, continue exploring." The blackbird simply said, "I'm tired, I need a rest." Birds get tired too, quack, quack. It's not efficient to be too tired. It randomly found an excuse to refuse. Anyway, it was not going to explore the way. Whoever wanted to go could go, but the bird was not going. Lei Xingfeng knew that this guy was scared, so he said, "Okay, let's go together." The black bird hurriedly said, Yes, let's go together. Let's go together." Caw! Xian Yao couldn't help but laugh. This black bird really knew how to climb. Lei Xingfeng identified the direction and knew that it was very far away from the entrance point. Originally, there was a fork in the road, but this road itself did not bring any treasures. Other than 2 skeletons, there were also 2 seals. The Thunder Attribute spiritual item was not obtained from this road, but from Yujian. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng did not have much hope for the other road and did not want to go to the underground river anymore. He had seen enough. 2 people and a bird walked along the river. Xian Yao sighed. "It is so desolate here, there is not even a plant. Really, I don't like it." Lei Xingfeng said, "This place is full of restrictions. Even if there's a plant, how can it grow? If the restrictions do not move, then it is fine. But once they move, the plants in the range of the restrictions will immediately turn into powder. No matter how powerful, no matter how capable the plants are, they will not be able to survive." Xian Yao said, "If that is the case, Then it is better not to have any plants. It is too painful. She meant that plants were too painful. She was naturally close to plants with the wood attribute. Lei Xingfeng found that the river water turned into white foam, which meant that there were no bloodworms outside the river. As they moved forward, the surrounding fog became thicker, and then he saw a hot spring gushing out from the ground, so this was the source of the underground river. This was still a valley, and the surroundings were like a maze, all steep rock walls. Looking up, the rock walls directly disappeared into the fog, and Lei Xingfeng also saw that the restriction nodes on the rock walls moved, which meant that there were restrictions on the rock walls. Lei Xingfeng sighed. This is really a world of restrictions. Xi and Yao asked, "Why do you say so?" Lei Xingfeng pointed at the rock walls and said, "Above, there are restrictions one after another, and if you go up, you will trigger the restrictions, which means that you cannot go up unless you break these restrictions." Xi and Yao bit her finger, looked up for a while, and said, "It is so high. Even if I go up, I can't break the restrictions." The blackbird also raised its head and looked up. It said, "It's not high, but the restriction is very annoying." No, it's very annoying. Birds hate restriction. Of course, it had a reason to hate restriction. It was almost killed by restriction, and it left a shadow in its heart. Lei Xingfeng said, "I will not go up. Even if I can break the restrictions, it is a thankless task. There should be no treasures up there. There is no point in going up." Xi and Yao said, "Yes, yes, we should go look for treasures." The blackbird also shouted, "Look for treasures, look for treasures. Birds, good treasures. Ga. Lei Xingfeng looked at the blackbird strangely and said, "Even if we find treasures, it will not be yours. What are you so excited about?" The blackbird was stunned and said after a while, "Ga. Why is there no bird? The bird is here. The bird also helped. Why is there no bird?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "You tell me. How did you help?" The blackbird blurted out. The bird explored. It suddenly remembered that it did explore, but it was trapped in the restrictions. If it was not for Lei Xingfeng's help, it would have died in the restrictions. Not only did it not help, it also implicated Lei Xingfeng. It was speechless. Looking at the dejected blackbird, Xan Yao was after all a kind person. She said softly, "When the time comes, see if there is anything you need. If not, then forget it. If there is, I will help you fight for it." The blackbird gratefully leaned on Xan Yao and used all its strength to comb her hair. It did not speak again, but it was obvious that its spirit was much better, and it did not feel dispirited. Lei Xingfeng did not continue to speak, but continued to lead Xi and Yao forward. Soon, Lei Xingfeng found that the terrain here was extremely complicated. There were all kinds of twists and turns, but he did not panic. Even if they got lost, it was not a big deal. Even if they could not open the secret door here, it could not restrict the mirror realm. So even if they could not walk out, Lei Xingfeng could still go outside through the mirror realm. Xi and Yao's head was spinning. She said, "Where are we?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know, but there's a way. No matter where we go in this kind of place, sometimes it is a matter of luck. If you're lucky, there will be treasures no matter where you go. If you are unlucky, you will not find anything even if you walk until you die." Xi and Yao did not believe. She said, "How can that be? As long as we find the right place, there will be rewards." Xi and Feng didn't bother to explain. Some things were truly mysterious and miraculous, which is why practitioners would attribute these miraculous things to luck, for there was no better explanation. His little sister did not go to many places, and the places she could go had already been explored. There might be a little danger, but with her cultivation, she could handle it. But after all, Xan Yao had never been alone and did not have the opportunity to explore alone, so she did not know much about the outside world, and many of her views were quite naive. This was also because Lei Xingfeng and Thunderstorm protected her too well. When Lei Xingfeng turned a corner with his little sister, the scene in front of them made them a little stunned. It was all densely packed with stalagmites, about 7 to 8 meters tall, as thick as an adult's waist. Stalagmites. Lei Xingfeng had obtained many stalagmites before, but this was the first time he saw such a big one. He was a little confused. Is there a crystal inside this thing? But Xan Yao did not recognize it. She said in surprise, So many stones. Now, why are these stones so strange? They all look like big thorns. The stalagmites were indeed like thorns. The top was thin, the bottom was thick, and they were densely packed together. Lei Xingfeng's silver eyes slightly flickered. He knew that there were no restrictions here. He said, "Little sister, wait a moment, stand still, and don't run around." As he spoke, he walked forward, quickly reaching the edge. He stretched out his hand to touch one of the stalagmites, then pushed with force. He found that this stalagmite was very sturdy. In an instant, Lei Yin flew out, and Lei Xingfeng revealed his true body. This time, he only revealed his 30 to 40-meter tall true body. He did not want to use his full strength, so he held back a part of his strength. Then he stretched out his hand to grab a stalagmite. With a loud shout, he used force with both hands, and with a kacha sound, the stalagmite broke. He turned around and retreated to the empty space. He stretched out his hand to wipe the stalagmite. Stone fragments flew everywhere, and a sparkling and translucent natural crystal was revealed. Lei Yao stared blankly. She said in shock, This is a crystal. Heavens, such a big natural crystal." She had no choice but to shout. In the secret sect, what was the most scarce resource after counting? It was crystals. Any practitioner would need a large amount of crystals, especially after changing the martial arts. Everyone would lack energy crystals. Even Lei Yao, she also knew the importance of crystals, but she had never lacked crystals with her grandfather and brother. No matter what, she would not lack crystals. The black bird jumped around. Its expression was extremely excited, but also extremely uneasy, because Lei Xingfeng said that it would not have a share. How could it not be anxious? Lei Yao suddenly cheered, ran to the edge of the stalagmite group, in an instant flew out of the wooden seal, and then revealed her true body. A few huge branches began to pull the stalagmite. The black bird shouted, Bird also wants," Lei Xingfeng said. "If you want, pull it out yourself. What are you shouting for?" The black bird did not react. It continued to shout, "Bird also wants ah? Ga, birds can move? Wah wah wah, I knew I was the best. Ga. Laughing loudly, it pounced on the stalagmite. Chapter 792. Finally, they found something valuable. Even if it wasn't a treasure, stalagmites were consumables, and they were the most abundant consumables. Everyone needed them, and everyone lacked them, especially this kind of high-quality crystal, which was even rarer. The black bird got Lei Xingfeng's approval and flew out. As soon as it was in the air, it turned into a big bird and bit down on a stalagmite. With a tilt of its head, a stalagmite was bitten off by it. It swallowed it in one gulp and bit down on another stalagmite. Its speed was simply too fast. Lei Xingfeng started by peeling off the stone shell, but after collecting 2 stalagmites, he felt that this was too slow and decided to let his real body expand to its maximum size. With a height of 200 meters, a big hand could grab 7 to 8 stalagmites and directly put them into his hidden Lun space. Yao wasn't slow either. Under Lin Ling's command, she could pull out 7 to 8 stalagmites in one go. She wasn't any slower than Lei Xingfeng. Only the blackbird was the slowest. It had to bite down 1 stalagmite at a time. Its speed couldn't be fast, unlike Lei Xingfeng, who could eat 5 to 8 stalagmites in one go. The most infuriating thing was that Lei Xingfeng used both hands to grab the stalagmites. With Lin Ling's help, Yao's speed couldn't be compared to Lei Xingfeng's, but she wasn't slow either. Very quickly, the blackbird was about to cry. It didn't have a hidden Lun space, and its storage space wasn't big. After biting 10 stalagmites, it had no space left. It could only watch as the brother and sister pushed forward, leaving nothing behind. The black bird anxiously walked in circles on the ground, but couldn't snatch the stalagmites. It was anxious, but it didn't want to talk. It had a stalagmite in its mouth, but it couldn't swallow it. It looked like there were a lot of stalagmites, but when they really collected them, they realized that there weren't that many. There were about 1,000 stalagmites in total. With Lei Xingfeng and Yao's speed, they were swept clean in a short time. After the two finished collecting the stalagmites, they saw the black bird still walking in circles on the ground. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Bird Bude, what are you doing? Are you full?" Only then did the blackbird notice that the dense stalagmites in front of it were clean. There was nothing left. It was so angry that it jumped around, but it was reluctant to put down the stalagmite in its mouth. It whimpered and didn't know what to say. Xi and Yao said sympathetically, "Poor bird Buddha." Lei Xingfeng giggled and said, "Stop going in circles. There won't be any more stalagmites." The blackbird finally thought of putting down the stalagmite in its mouth. Then its body shrank. It stood on the stalagmite and said, "Wow, GA, I'm so angry, I'm so angry. I'm pissed to death. This is simply preposterous. Wah, 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 I'm pissed. Not happy. Not happy. Sob, sob, too angry. I can't eat it, ah." After jumping around for a while, the blackbird realized that no matter if it was Lei Xingfeng or Xin Yao, they were both giggling at it. Finally, it couldn't jump anymore. It spread its wings and flew to Xian Yao's shoulder and begged, "Yao Yao sis, there's still one more stalagmite. Can you help this bird keep it? GA, this bird will repay you." Xian Yao smiled slightly. She went forward and kept the stalagmite and said, "Okay, I'll help you keep it. Now, there's no need to rush." Only then did the blackbird relax. It was a typical case of picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. Lei Xingfeng looked at the blackbird thoughtfully. After a while, he said, "Bird Bude, you've lost out." The blackbird felt that Lei Xingfeng said what it was thinking. It said repeatedly, "Yes, yes, this bird has lost out. This bird has lost a lot." Lei Xingfeng said, "If you broke it and put it aside, no one would snatch it from you." In other words, when you were spinning around, if you used the time to break the stalagmite, and you could have broken at least 10 stalagmites, and then let me, your little sister, keep it, wouldn't that be a bit more? What was rubbing salt on the wound? This was rubbing salt on the wound. The blackbird suddenly felt bad. Its eyes stared blankly at Lei Xingfeng. After a while, it wailed, You, can't you not remind me? When it's over, you only remind me. You're bullying this bird. You Wawa. Are you trying to bully this bird to death?" Lei Xingfeng crossed his arms and laughed. "I'm not bullying you. I'm just reminding you." The blackbird used its wings to pat its head and said, "Idiot, this bird is a big idiot." Lin Ling popped her head out and said, "You just realized it yourself. I already said, you're an idiot." Then, she disappeared again. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao couldn't help but laugh. The blackbird said listlessly, "Yes, I'm an idiot." There were so many high-level crystals in front of him, and no one stopped him. He could take them as he pleased, but he was spinning around. Thinking about it, was there anything more stupid than this? He could only admit that he was an idiot. At that time, the whole bird was confused. Lei Xingfeng didn't beat it anymore. He was just playing around. He laughed and said, "Okay, don't be discouraged. If you don't have enough, just ask me. It's not like I won't give it to you." In this aspect, he had always been generous, especially to the people from the secret sections. Of course, the blackbird was included. The blackbird wasn't excited this time. It said weakly, "This bird is very pitiful. One day, this bird will be played to death." It finally understood that this was Lei Xingfeng playing around. Lei Xingyao laughed and said, "You just realized it. You're so stupid. Take it easy. If you want to fight for everything, the one who loses in the end will be you, haha." The blackbird said, "Birds are still honest. People are too bad." Lei Xingfeng was also amused by his words. He said, "Since you know we are bad people, why are you still following us?" The blackbird said, "I'm happy. I like bad people." The two people and one bird bickered. It was very lively. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's keep going. Maybe there are surprises waiting for us. This time, our luck is not bad. We found something very useful. Although it's not a treasure, I'm very satisfied." Recently, he had consumed a lot of crystals. Especially when he hooked up with Laine, he had used up a lot of crystals. This harvest was equivalent to a big harvest. He could replenish his inventory in one go. This made him very satisfied. High-quality crystals were often very small. There were very few naturally produced crystals. For high-level practitioners, it was really like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It was simply not enough. It was only after the discovery of stalagmites that the high-level natural energy crystals became abundant. Practitioners, especially high-level practitioners, had to learn how to purify crystals from energy ores and condense large pieces of energy crystals. Only then could they maintain their daily practice and use them in battle. Without these large pieces of energy crystals, it would be difficult to even maintain one's own seal, let alone advance. This was also why the higher the level of a practitioner, the more difficult it was. Moreover, they had to travel all over the world. This was all because of the lack of resources. They had to go out and explore. There was no hope at home. Of course, for low-level practitioners, if they were limited to a certain place, they could still continue. However, when they advanced to high level, they would also face the same problem. Therefore, this harvest, no matter how one looked at it, was extremely important. The stalagmites Lei Xingfeng had obtained earlier were limited in number. Moreover, the stalagmites here were much smaller. Now, one stalagmite could satisfy all the energy needed for a low-level practitioner to advance to the elementary level of Tao Lord. There was even a surplus. However, to become an intermediate-level Tao Lord, 2 stalagmites like this would be needed. The higher the level, the more it would consume. As for practitioners at Lei Xingfeng's level, the consumption of these stalagmites could frighten low-level practitioners to death. This was a slightly wider canyon. They continued forward and turned another corner. Lei Xingfeng saw the restriction node in front of them move. He said, "Stop. There's a restriction." The black bird said, "Another restriction? Why are there so many restrictions here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "This world can be said to be made up of restrictions. Otherwise, why would it be called the Fantasy Sky Realm? The entire Fantasy Sky Realm is made up of countless restrictions. Someone once said that this is the remains of a powerful person." Lei Xingyao was shocked. She said, "Brother, you mean we're on a dead person's body?" The blackbird said, "Impossible. How can there be such a big dead person?" Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "I don't really believe it either. However, you saw so many natural restrictions. Don't you think it's like the restrictions in the seal? Formed naturally and grew by themselves." Lei Xingyao said, but this is too exaggerated. Who could cultivate to such a level and leave such a big body after death? Moreover, I can't see any part of it that looks like a corpse." Lei Xingfeng said, "Actually, I'm also confused. This is just a legend. I don't understand it. The only thing that makes me feel that it's not nonsense is that the restrictions here are similar to the ones in the seal. I even learned a lot." The black bird said, "This place, I don't like it. It would be strange if it liked it. Not to mention that it couldn't fly freely. It almost died in the restrictions." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, this place should be safer. You guys stay here. I'll go up and take a look." He was a bit numb to restrictions. There were too many of them. After experiencing so many restrictions, his fear of restrictions had become less and less. Lei Xingyao and the black bird stayed where they were. Lei Xingfeng walked up by himself. When he was a few steps away from the restriction, Lei Xingfeng stopped and looked at it. There was a long and narrow restriction. After a little analysis, Lei Xingfeng was surprised to find that this was a rare earth restriction. Its purpose was not to kill, but to trap and obstruct. Of course, the most important part of the restriction was the illusion formation. This kind of restriction was especially useless against Lei Xingfeng. If other high-level practitioners entered this restriction, it would be very troublesome. If they couldn't see through this restriction, they would be affected by the illusion formation. In addition to the earth restriction's special obstruction, even if they didn't die, they would lose a layer of skin. After Exine Feng understood this restriction, he couldn't help but worry, because if he brought his little sister, he wouldn't be able to pass through, but if he passed, his little sister would be on the other side. However, Exine Feng quickly reacted and slapped his head, scolding himself for being an idiot. With a mirror world, why would he be afraid of Exine Yao passing? Chapter 793. As long as he went over, set the coordinates, and then came back to pick her up, he would directly cross this restriction. Although it was a bit troublesome, it was much better than breaking through the formation. Lei Xingfeng didn't release his real body and just walked into the restriction formation. Then, Exine Yao was dumbfounded. Since the restriction formation wasn't activated, she could clearly see Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng danced and jumped. The way he walked was really ecstatic to the extreme. It actually made people feel a strange beauty. The blackbird was puzzled. What is he doing? Xianyao shook her head and said, I don't know what brother is doing. It seems to be dancing, but what is he dancing in the restriction? Not to mention Xianyao, even the blackbird was confused. It couldn't understand what Lei Xingfeng was doing. Lin Ling popped out half of her head and just took a look. She exclaimed, wow, so amazing. Xianyao asked in confusion, what's so amazing? Lin Ling said, he's so amazing. She used her small finger and pointed at Lei Xingfeng. Her small face was full of shock. The blackbird said, what's so amazing about this? Birds can do it too. Birds can dance better than him. It started to be arrogant again. Lin Ling spat and said, stupid egg bird. Ing. He's dodging the restriction. In order not to trigger the restriction, he's doing this. Do you think it's easy to move? Stupid egg bird. So stupid. Ing. She scolded the blackbird a few words without holding back. She looked like it was useless to talk to it. The blackbird had been beaten up a lot recently and didn't dare to fight back. It said resentfully, what's so great about it? If you have the ability, come and try it too. Lin Ling said, stupid egg bird, I don't need to do this at all. I can't use the wooden seal and run into the restriction to be abused. Ing. Soon, Lei Xingfeng disappeared. He turned a corner and saw the edge of the restriction. This restriction wasn't complicated, and the restriction nodes didn't move much. According to Lei Xingfeng's classification, this was a relatively rigid restriction. It wasn't difficult for him to cross it. After walking out of the restriction, Lei Xingfeng immediately opened the mirror realm and returned to the original place. He then took Lei Xingfeng and the blackbird through the mirror realm and passed through the large restriction array. Xianyao smiled. So you can walk like this. This saved a lot of trouble. The blackbird also said, yes, there's no need to break through the restriction. Lin Ling said, this is to open the mirror realm. It requires crystal energy. She knew everything. Lei Xingfeng said, it's fine. Even if it costs a few energy crystals, it's worth it. There's no need to take the risk. As long as his little sister was safe, spending a few energy crystals was nothing to him. Lin Ling stopped talking and just bit her finger while looking into the distance. Lei Xingfeng said, continue forward. Lin Ling said, wah, go this way. Ing. She used her little finger to point at a crack in the rock wall and squeaked. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, did you find anything? Lin Ling said urgently, Ing, I didn't find anything. Please go this way. Lei Xingfeng knew that Lin Ling was a spirit creature with intelligence. Sometimes she was more intelligent than humans. He thought about it and said, okay, let's go in and see what made our Xiao Ling so excited. Of course, Lei Xingyao and the blackbird wouldn't object. The two followed Lei Xingfeng into the crack on the wall. There are all kinds of cracks on the wall. Some are big, some are small. Many cracks could be seen to the bottom. Of course, there were many that couldn't be seen. Ordinary people wouldn't even notice them. According to Lin Ling's guidance, Lei Xingfeng found that this was a long and thin crack that extended in. Usually, this kind of crack would at most go 7 or 8 meters into the wall before disappearing. But this crack, Lei Xingfeng walked for more than 50 meters and was still extending in. This gave him great confidence. Gradually, the crack became narrower. Originally, 2 people could walk side by side, but now, only 1 person could walk. Soon, even 1 person had to walk sideways. Lei Xingfeng said, do you still want to go in? Lin Ling said, continue. Ing. It could be seen that she was very anxious. Her little finger pointed forward and kept yelling. Due to her small body, her voice was very soft. If one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't be able to hear what she was saying. After a few minutes, Lei Xingfeng couldn't go in even if he walked sideways. He said, Xiaoling, we can't go in. Lin Ling tilted her head and thought for a moment. Then, she flew out of Lei Xingyao's collar and went into the crack. Lei Xingyao was shocked. Xiaoling, don't go. Xian Feng extended his hand without hesitation and began to forcefully break open the wall, forcing his way in. Moments later, Lei Xingfeng opened up a hole. When Lei Xingfeng entered, he was shocked. The place was like a bottleneck. After digging in, it was very spacious. It was about 7 to 8 square meters of space. In the middle, there was an extremely thick stalagmite. Lei Xingfeng recognized it at a glance. It was the stalagmite they collected before, but this stalagmite was thicker and bigger. Blackbird said, "What a huge stalagmite. Sigh, it's a pity there's only one." It was as thick as a water tank, 3 meters tall, and looked like a cone. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw Lin Ling hugging a flower at the top of the stalagmite. The golden flower was vivid and lifelike, but Lei Xingfeng knew that this was the essence formed by the crystal. This flower wasn't big, only the size of a bowl. It had compound petals and layers. Lin Ling hugged the flower stem and shouted, "This is mine, this is mine. Ying, no one can snatch it from me." Of course, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't snatch it from Lin Ling, much less Lei Xingyao. Blackbird asked curiously, "Isn't this just a flower? What's so special about it?" Lin Ling said in annoyance, "Stupid bird. Ying, you don't know anything. Don't make a fool of yourself." Blackbird said, "This is a flower, what don't I know?" Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "Bird Bude, don't talk if you don't know. No one will treat you as a mute." Blackbird raised his head unhappily, but he didn't dare to continue. He was not convinced at all. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Xiaoling, is this a crystal flower?" Lin Ling said, Yes, this is a crystal flower. It's best to give it to Sister Yao Yao, but you have to dig around. This stalagmite is very big." Lei Xingyao said, "For me?" Lin Ling said, Of course. Ying, with this thing, Sister Yao Yao, your wooden seal will be even stronger." Lei Xingfeng said, "Little sister, this is a treasure. I'll dig around. You prepare to use the wooden seal to collect it." Of course, he wouldn't snatch the treasure from his little sister, as long as she could use it. Lin Ling heard this and finally felt relieved. She knew that Lei Xingfeng really doted on his little sister, so his words were definitely reliable. She didn't need to hold onto the crystal flower tightly. She flew back into Lei Xingyao's collar and immediately returned to the wooden seal. She had to prepare in the wooden seal. Once the wooden seal was collected, she had to find a suitable place to place it. Lei Xingfeng released his true body, which was only one size bigger than him. This way, he could dig with his bare hands. This was the most efficient method. Due to the limited space here, Lei Xingfeng couldn't release all of his true body. He bent down and started digging. The power of his true body wasn't ordinary. Even if the ground was rock, in the hands of Lei Xingfeng's true body, it was like digging tofu. He directly inserted his hand into the rock and casually crushed it. His digging speed was very fast, and he dug down in an instant. The rock fragments were all stored in his Luanchang space. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a place to store them. As he dug, Lei Xingfeng was shocked. This stalagmite was terrifyingly huge. After digging for 5 to 6 meters, he still couldn't see the bottom of the stalagmite. The stalagmite was even thicker. Lei Xingyao also released her true body to dig. The green tree's digging speed wasn't slow either. It also stored the rocks it dug into its Luanchang space. Only the blackbird was bored. It couldn't dig. The space here was too small, and it couldn't transform. If it didn't transform, it wouldn't be able to dig such a hard rock. It could only stare at the side. Finally, they dug to the root. This stalagmite was more than 10 meters long. The thickest part was twice the size of a water tank. It was a huge stalagmite. Of course, Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao didn't peel off the outer shell of the stalagmite. This was a layer of protection. If it was peeled off, the energy would slowly dissipate. Lei Xingfeng said, "Little sister, use the wooden seal to store it." Lei Xingyao agreed. Her true body was slightly bigger. She couldn't help it. The space here was too small. She couldn't use all of her strength. However, her current true body was enough. Countless branches drooped down from the green tree and began to quickly wrap around the stalagmite. In a moment, the stalagmite was completely covered. Lei Xingyao shouted. In an instant, the stalagmite broke from the root. A crisp kacha sound was heard, and the entire stone wall trembled. In the blink of an eye, the stalagmite disappeared without a trace. It had been stored in the wooden seal by Lei Xingyao. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He didn't say anything. He just stared at the place where the stalagmite broke. The blackbird said, "Since it has been stored, we can leave now. If you find another stalagmite, give it to the bird." Lei Xingyao giggled and didn't say anything. Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "In your dreams." The blackbird wanted to cry. "You can't bully the bird like this." It said, Then the second stalagmite will be for you. The third stalagmite will be for the bird. How about it? GAGA. It felt that this distribution was very fair. Lei Xingfeng still said 2 words, "In your dreams." Lei Xingyao laughed loudly. The blackbird didn't accept it and shouted, "GAY." Chapter 794. Lei Xingfeng said, "Do you think the crystal flower is an ordinary material? Idiot, that's a treasure. It's already not bad to find 1 stalagmite, let alone a third one. Is your little brain made of paste?" He reprimanded it without holding back. The blackbird just realized that it wasn't that Lei Xingfeng didn't want to share it, but that it couldn't find a second one. It was speechless. Lei Xingyao laughed. "Damn beaut, this stalagmite was found by Xiaoling. If Xiaoling didn't find it, we wouldn't be able to find it at all. It would be extremely difficult to find a second one." The blackbird said, "Bird knows. GAAIGA. Ever since it came to the fantasy sky realm, it had been attacked nonstop. It was very depressed." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go. I hope we can find some more treasures." If it wasn't for Lin Ling, they would have really overlooked this treasure. Soon, the 2 people and 1 bird came outside. They continued to walk along the road and encountered all sorts of forks, which made Lei Xingfeng scratch his head. Who knew which path would lead to the location of the treasure? So, Lei Xingfeng could only walk randomly, choose randomly, and walk randomly. They didn't expect that after walking for 2 days, they didn't encounter any restrictions. It was all canyons and cliffs. It was very smooth. Lei Xingyao was confused and said, "Brother, isn't there restrictions everywhere here? How come we haven't seen them these few days?" Lei Xingfeng didn't know what was going on and said, "If we walk a bit more, maybe we'll encounter them." The blackbird said, "Strange. Why are you guys willing to encounter restrictions?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Stupid bird. There are often benefits to having restrictions." He couldn't help but imitate Lin Ling's tone. The blackbird shouted, "Don't scold birds." The bird wasn't. It wasn't a stupid bird. Birds are very smart. Smart birds. GA. It was flustered and exasperated. It really couldn't take it anymore and scolded stupid birds. Even a bird couldn't take it. Lin Ling popped her head out in the midst of the chaos. "Stupid bird." The blackbird shouted, "Bird wants to eat you." GA. But then, Lin Ling went back into the wooden seal. There was no sign of her at all. Even after calling for a long time, no one answered. Lei Xanyao said, Okay, don't bully the bird Buddha. He's quite pitiful." The blackbird said angrily, "Birds are not pitiful. Birds are glorious and great birds." Big bird. Lei Xingfeng chuckled and shook his head. He didn't want to continue provoking the blackbird. He said, Okay, big bird, be quiet. You're making my head hurt." When Blackbird heard Lei Xingfeng admit that he was a big bird, he suddenly felt much better. He probably knew that he was noisy and annoying, so he shut up. After walking for another 2 days, they finally encountered a restriction, but this restriction was even simpler. Lei Xingfeng didn't even bother to go through it, instead choosing to force his way in, directly destroying the large restriction formation and leaving with Lei Xingfeng and the blackbird. Finally, Lei Xingfeng walked out of the maze-like canyon and came to an open area. This place was also very desolate. There were rolling hills and dry riverbeds. The ground was full of gray and white gravel. Lei Xingyao asked curiously, "What is this place?" Lei Xingfeng's face became serious. He said, "A super large compound restriction formation." The blackbird said, "I don't feel any restriction." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's all restriction. With that dry riverbed as the boundary, everything behind is restriction." It was the first time he saw such a magnificent restriction. The area was too big. Other than the maze-like mountain range behind them, the rest of the place was covered by restriction. How could there be such a large restriction? Lei Xingfeng couldn't understand it all. After a while, he sighed and said, "Little sister, let's go back." Lei Xingyao said, "Go back? Go back where? The maze or the mirror world?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The mirror world. This restriction formation isn't something I can deal with. It's too big. It completely covers everything. Anyone who enters will have a hard time getting out." Lei Xingyao thought for a while and said, "Okay, let's go back." She didn't want to implicate her brother, so she was very obedient. Back in the mirror world, Lei Xingfeng said, "Little sister, rest for 2 days. I'll take you to another place." Lei Xingyao was very happy as long as she followed Lei Xingfeng. She hadn't followed Lei Xingfeng for many years. These few days, she was very happy, not only because of the treasures. As for the blackbird, it wanted to follow them even more. How could it get any benefits from staying at home? Even if it ate some leftovers, it was still a very generous benefit. Not to mention other things, just the stalagmites were enough for it to earn a lot. Actually, according to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, there should be more stalagmites in the maze, but it was very difficult for him to find them. The inside was too complicated. There were countless twists and turns, and there were countless forks. It was impossible to walk through all of them. Being able to walk out of the maze and see the huge restriction was already considered lucky. Lei Xingfeng was very careful about the restriction. Because Lei Xingyao was beside him, he had to decisively bring her back. That kind of place wasn't something that Lei Xingyao could explore. He would go there in the future when he had time. He believed that it must be a core area. This kind of core area, the restriction must be super strong. This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't gather anyone. He only invited Wu Yang, Guqi, and Thunderstorm to the room. He took out the stalagmites and gave them a portion. After resting for 2 days, Lei Xingfeng brought Lei Xingyao into the fantasy sky realm again. This time, they went directly to the trading point. Just as they entered the trading point, Lei Xingfeng saw a familiar face. Xingfeng was actually still there. Immediately after, he saw another familiar face. That was Rainy, Yujian. Lei Xingyao hugged Lei Xingfeng's arm and looked at the two people walking over cautiously. She softly asked, "Who are they?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't be nervous. They're familiar faces." Lei Xingyao instantly relaxed. Familiar faces were not enemies. Of course, they weren't friends. Actually, Xingfeng was already considered friend. This person had helped Lei Xingfeng a lot. Xingfeng said, "You're finally here. I've been here 4 times. If you didn't come, I would have left. This is..." He sized up Lei Xingyao and found that her abilities were not bad. What surprised him even more was that Lei Xingyao was actually of the wood element. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is my little sister." Little sister greets Senior Xingfeng. Lei Xingyao smiled and bowed. "Greetings, Senior." Xingfeng was shocked and said, "I rarely see a girl who can advance to the monarch rank. Impressive." Yujian walked over and said, "A Feng, you're here too." Lei Xingfeng said, "Rainy, why are you here?" Lei Xingyao couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing. The person and the name really didn't match. No matter how she looked at it, this old man had nothing to do with Rainy. Yujian said, "What are you laughing at? Are you mocking me? Is the name Rainy not nice?" "I think it's nice." Lei Xingyao hurriedly shook her head and said, Sorry. I didn't mean to mock you. I just thought it was a little weird." Hee hee. Xingfeng said, "Come here." As he spoke, he led the way in front. The few of them came to a rest area and sat down. Xingfeng sighed and said, "A Feng, after you left, my gains were so much worse." Lei Xingfeng smiled faintly and said, "You have a spot with the rainbow light and also a spot with the jade sprout. Would your gains be small?" Yujian said, "The jade sprout is gone." Because of this, quite a number of experts started fighting. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What do you mean?" Yujian said, "Some people used the jade sprout location to exchange for treasures. In the end, when they went there was no jade sprout. It's normal for them to fight." Lei Xingfeng said, "If there was no jade sprout, then return the treasure to the other party. What's there to fight about? Xing Feng said the treasure was sold. Do you still want to take it back? Lei Xingfeng said, no way. Shameless? If that's the case, then there will really be a fight. This is intolerable. Yu Jian nodded and said, most of the time, but there was one time where it wasn't the case. It was an old man who gave treasures but didn't have jade sprout. This guy didn't have any other requests. He didn't need to return the treasures. He asked the guy who exchanged for them to give him the jade sprout. Lei Xingyao said nervously, did he kill someone? Yu Jian smiled and said, he didn't succeed. The opponent ran away. Those who can come here are not weak. They all have a few tricks up their sleeves. Even if they are strong, if they want to kill a high-level practitioner, they need to be able to do it. Xing Feng said, I heard about it too. I don't know where that old man came from, but he's extremely arrogant. He's really strong too. A high-level sovereign king was forced to flee like a rat. He couldn't even fight back. However, that old man has a special technique that allows him to open a secret door in a place that can't be opened. In the end, he escaped. Lei Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat. Could there be a mirror world? However, this kind of thing was definitely not to be asked. Lei Xingyao's eyes were also filled with doubt. However, she saw Lei Xingfeng shake his head slightly. She understood the meaning and didn't ask. Yu Jian said, so it's like this. The version I heard was different. The only thing that was similar was that this guy escaped in the end. The old man couldn't do anything. Haha, interesting. Not only did he lose the treasure, but he also made a fool of himself. Lei Xingfeng looked around and said, there aren't many people here. Xing Feng said, a while ago, and there were many people gathered here. Now, at least half of them have run away. Lei Xingfeng said, are there any valuable places? Yu Jian said, yes, of course. There are some valuable places here. Many people know about them. However, there are some places that you can go to, and some that you can't. Even if you go there, you won't get anything. Xing Feng said, I have a few places here that I can trade with others. However, I try to go to 1 or 2 places. I can't go alone. That's why I've been waiting for you here. I plan to wait for you, and then go together. Yu Dian's interest was immediately piqued. In this place, people usually fought alone. However, the rewards of fighting alone were relatively less. It was best to go with a few people. However, these people had to have a tacit understanding and couldn't fight. Otherwise, once they found a treasure, it would be time to break up. If they were unlucky, they would have to fight and even die. Chapter 795. Thus, forming a group here was a risky thing to do. Under normal circumstances, these high-level practitioners would not be willing to form a group. Xing Feng said, I am forming a group with him. For now, we don't want to add anyone. Yu Jian said angrily, why? Didn't we just meet by chance? Why can you two form a group, but I can't? Lei Xingfeng said, because we have been together for many years. When we were in the big crack, we got separated. Later on, we formed a group again in the fantasy sky realm. But we got separated again. This time, I came to the trading point to see if he is here. Yu Jian suddenly felt discouraged. He also knew that it was a lucky thing to have 2 companions in this place. Many experts had stayed here for more than 10 years, or even 100 years, and still couldn't find companion. It was too difficult. Everyone had their own temperament, and it was very rare to find someone to help each other. Which high-level cultivator didn't have their own temperament, and who would be willing to accommodate others? They would rather be alone than to form a group. Actually, it was not that they did not want to form a group, but that they could not. Yu Jian had made a deal with Lei Xingfeng before. He knew that Lei Xingfeng was a man of his words. Thus, he was willing to try forming a group. In the end, Xing Feng rejected the idea. Thinking about it, Yu Jian said, how about this? The 3 of us will form a group. Things, yes, treasures, we will choose according to our needs. If the item is really good and everyone wants it, then we will choose according to the amount of contribution. Those who get it will compensate the others. How about that? With the 3 of them together, their strength was already very strong. Furthermore, Xine Feng also brought along Xine Yao. She was of the wood attribute and couldn't fight, but she had the power of healing. If she could reach the level of a monarch king, then her healing could benefit monarch king experts. Xingfeng was a little hesitant. Lei Xingfeng was also a little hesitant. The two looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Yu Jian was overjoyed. Good, I will join you. Actually, when Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng looked at each other, they both understood one thing at the same time. The three of them were allies. No matter what, they could suppress Yu Jian. So what if he was alone? Were they afraid that he would overturn the heavens? That was why they agreed at the same time. This also showed that these two fellows had been working together for a long time, and their chemistry was quite good. Another important reason was that Lei Xingfeng had agreed to let Yu Jian join. Lei Xingfeng had once obtained an extremely rare thunder attribute, Fei, from Yu Jian, which resolved one of Lei Xingfeng's most important predicaments. If he couldn't find this thunder attribute, Fei, it was unknown how long it would take for Lei Xingfeng to fuse with a Lei Yin. Just for this reason, Lei Xingfeng was willing to guide Yu Jian. This was the reason why Yu Jian was able to join them. In fact, it was also Yu Dian's luck. One had to know that Lei Xingfeng was proficient in restrictions. Originally, his role was limited to a certain extent, mainly because he was not strong enough. Now that he was strong enough and was proficient in restrictions, he was the main force. Xingfeng didn't know about Lei Xingfeng's changes, but he had always hoped to be with Lei Xingfeng. After all, the benefits of having a fellow proficient in restrictions who wasn't weak by his side were self-evident. This fantasy sky realm was a world of restrictions. Whoever mastered restrictions would be able to obtain the greatest benefits. However, there weren't many high-tier cultivators who understood restrictions, and even fewer who were proficient in them. After interacting with so many people, Xingfeng naturally understood this principle. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng was originally a cultivator proficient in restrictions, but his strength wasn't that great. It was only with Xingfeng's help that Lei Xingfeng had advanced by leaps and bounds. After such a long period of testing, Lei Xingfeng had gained Xingfeng's deep trust. This trust wasn't easy to come by. It was almost impossible for a high-tier cultivator to trust another high-tier cultivator. Because they were both experts, they basically acted according to their hearts and had very few scruples. If they hadn't gone through a period together, who knew what kind of temperament the other party had? This was also one of the reasons why it was hard for people to form a group here. Lei Xingfeng didn't want to bring Xi and Yao along to form a group with others. However, he could still let Xi and Yao play for a while. If there was any danger, Lei Xingfeng would find a chance to send her back to the mirror world. Xi and Yao also understood that once the three of them formed a group, she wouldn't be able to stay for long. After all, her battle strength was too weak, and her real body's movement speed was slow. If her real body's movement speed was fast, then she would still have a chance to follow Lei Xingfeng. However, Xi and Yao didn't feel regretful. Being able to follow her brother out this time was an eye-opener. When she returned home, she had the motivation to continue training. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Senior, that place have you been there before?" Xingfeng looked at Lei Xingfeng and said, "Feng, you don't have to call me senior in the future. Here, strength is respect. With strength, we can interact as equals. You can call me Old Xing or Xingfeng." Yu Jian said, "Just call me Rainy." When Xi and Yao heard this, she wanted to laugh. This old man was very interesting, acting as if he didn't know how to respect himself. The three of them forming a group was considered a strong force in the fantasy sky realm. Here, they were all experts who fought alone. Most importantly, the people here came from all over the place. Basically, there weren't any people from the same hometown, unless they were like Lei Xingfeng who brought his family here. This kind of situation was also very rare. One had to know that for any place, raising a high-level cultivator required a lot of resources. It was impossible to raise a second expert of the same level. For example, Mingzhe Alliance. Even with such a big alliance, there were very few cultivators who had reached the monarch grade. Most of them were at the beginner or intermediate level. At most, there were 2 or 3 of them at the advanced level. As for the peak level, it was hard to say if there were any. Even with such a big power like Mingzhe Alliance, they could only raise so many. If it was a smaller power, they wouldn't be able to raise any experts at all. That was why the experts who came to the fantasy sky realm rarely came from the same place. There's also no habit of greeting people from the same hometown. Yu Jian looked at Xan Yao and muttered to himself for a while before saying, "Wood element, huh? That's really rare." Xing Feng nodded and said, "Wood element is rarely cultivated. It seems like your brother is very good. He must have helped you." TSK, TSK. It's really not easy. Everyone who had cultivated, especially those who had reached the advanced level, knew very well how much resources a cultivator needed. Looking at Xian Yao's white and tender appearance, they knew that the materials she needed were definitely not obtained by herself. Yu Jian also had the same understanding. When he saw Xian Yao, he knew that this person was very important to Lei Xingfeng. He took out a very inconspicuous piece of wood. It was 1 foot long, and there was a slanted tree sprout on it. 1 leaf and 1 sprout, tender and emitting a faint yellow glow. This yellow was the so-called goose yellow, and it was very beautiful. However, this piece of wood was very inconspicuous. It was as thick as a bowl, as if it had been forcefully broken. It was only 1 foot long, and it was dark and inconspicuous. If it wasn't for this sprout, no one would think that it was a good thing. Xian Yao's eyes instantly widened. She was an advanced level cultivator of the wood element. Of course, she could clearly distinguish between good and bad things. Almost at the same time she saw this piece of wood, a thought flashed through her mind. This was a treasure. Lin Ling was already jumping around in the wooden seal. She didn't dare to show her head in front of others, so she jumped around in the wooden seal. Ing, building blocks, it's building blocks. Hurry up and take it. Ing. Xian Yao calmed down instead. This was all thanks to Lei Xingfeng frequently giving her treasures, which allowed her to train. Seeing that Xian Yao's expression was normal, Yu Jian was slightly disappointed. He had had this thing for a long time, and the magical thing was that this piece of wood was always like this. The leaves and sprout on it were always like this. They didn't wither, they didn't die, it just existed. That was why he was sure that this thing wasn't ordinary. However, he had shown it to many people, and they couldn't tell what it was. Thinking that it was useless to keep it, he might as well give it to them as a favor. Yu Jian said, "It's our first time meeting. I don't have anything good, so I'll give it to you." Lei Xian Yao said graciously, "Thank you." Then, she took the building blocks and put them into the wooden seal. Lei Xingfeng was just about to speak when he saw Xian Yao take out 2 small bottles and pass them to him. "This is Yao Fan. I don't know if Qianbei has heard of it. And this is my gift." Xingfeng's knowledge was vast. He said, "Yao Fan? No, it's a Yao code. This thing can heal high-level cultivators." "Oh, this is good stuff." Yu Jian obviously didn't know what it was. He said, "What's the use of it?" Xian Yao said, "If the main body is injured, as long as there's a breath left, Yao Fan can heal it. I'm a great master potion master." Yu Jian grabbed it immediately. This was good stuff. At high level, there were very few potions that could be used. If one wasn't a great master potion master, they wouldn't be able to make it. Actually, Yu Jian overestimated Xian Yao's skill. The reason Xian Yao could reach the level of a great master potion master was because of Lin Ling's power. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to make such a potion. Xing Feng said, "It's equivalent to a half treasure." Xian Yao took out 2 more and gave them to Xing Feng. "Since I gave you Jian Qianbei 2, then Xing Feng Qianbei will also have 2. Xing Feng pointed at his nose and said in shock, "For me." Xian Yao nodded and said, "And for Qianbei." This move touched Xing Feng. He rubbed his hands and stuttered, "What should I do? I'm sorry." After taking the 2 Yao Fan, he started to look through his Luan Chong space, wanting to find wood-type treasures. He felt this little girl was too cute. Unfortunately, Xing Feng didn't pay much attention to wood-type materials because he rarely used them. Thus, there weren't many wood-type materials in his Luan Chong space. Most of them were casually thrown into the Luan Chong space and forgotten about. Xing Feng couldn't find any suitable materials. His head was sweating. Xian Yao didn't care. She was communicating with Lin Ling, wanting to know what the building block was. She was also curious. With Lin Ling's natural sensitivity to wood-type treasures, there must be something to it for her to be so anxious. Xiaoling, what is this building block? Then Xan Yao saw Lin Ling in the wooden seal hugging that inconspicuous piece of wood and mumbling something. Chapter 796. Seeing Lin Ling hugging the building blocks like a money grubber, Xan Yao asked, Xiaoling, what is a building block? Lin Ling said, this thing is helpful to Yao Yao's sister, but the biggest help is to Xiaoling. This is a precious, godly wood. It can nourish Xiaoling's growth and also Yao Yao's sister's true body. It's definitely something good. Anything is worth it. Xan Yao immediately fainted from joy as though she was drunk. She hugged Lei Xingfeng's arm tightly. After hearing this, her body went soft and hung on Lei Xingfeng's arm. Xan Feng immediately noticed the change in Xan Yao's emotions and secretly turned his head to blink. Xan Yao made a goo sound and almost laughed out loud. She lowered her head, knowing why she was happy that her brother saw through her. The two had a tacit understanding since young. Lei Xingfeng didn't know what that piece of wood was for, but seeing Xan Yao's reaction, he knew it was a real treasure. Otherwise, Xan Yao wouldn't have lost her composure like this and wouldn't have given away such an expensive Yao fan. Of course, Xan Yao had given Lei Xingfeng 20 of them before, so Lei Xingfeng knew that Xan Yao liked what he got. Lei Xingfeng asked, Old Xing, where are you going this time? Xingfeng said, I need a kind of material for a seal. It is said that this place has it. Of course, you will also gain something if you go there. That area is famous for gathering treasures. I believe that everyone will gain a lot. The most important thing is that there are all kinds of treasures and materials in that place. Lei Xingfeng nodded. So that means that this place has so many good things because it's very dangerous? Xingfeng smiled. That's right. I don't dare to go in alone. There, the secret door can't be opened. In other words, you have to walk in, get the things, and then walk out. It's impossible to use the secret door. Lei Xingfeng asked, Is it very far? Xingfeng said, It's all right because a large part of the journey can be traversed using a secret door. After that, we'll need to walk for 10 days or so before we can enter. Yu Jian looked at Xingfeng and said, You're not thinking of going to the Forbidden Land, are you? Lei Xingfeng said, A restricted area? What do you mean? Yu Jian said, That place is very famous, and many people know about it. Moreover, in the outer area, many high-level cultivators are looking for opportunities. The Forbidden Land is actually inside. There are also many good things on the outside, and many of the restrictions have been marked. Even if you go there for the first time, you won't accidentally enter the restrictions. There are many good things there. Xingfeng nodded and said, You also know about the Forbidden Lands. Yu Jian couldn't help but roll his eyes. Do you think I'm here for nothing? He said, That's the choice of most practitioners. Unless they don't know that place, who wouldn't go there? Xingfeng couldn't help but shake his head and said, Damn it, I used materials to exchange for the location of this place. There are also many things to take note of. No wonder so many people know about it. In fact, he didn't meet anyone else on this trip. However, he knew that this place was huge, and if he could meet someone else, he would need some luck. Of course, it was hard to say whether it was good or bad luck. This trip made Xingfeng want to retreat. The situation here was too complicated, and he didn't have the slightest confidence. If he was confident that he could break through 1 or 2 restrictions, it would be difficult for him to deal with the 3rd or 4th restriction. As the name implied, the Forbidden Land was filled with all kinds of restrictions. Yu Jian said, Yes, newcomers will always be at a disadvantage. He immediately put on a show of being a veteran, but Xingfeng ignored him and ignored him. Lei Xingfeng said, I don't know if I can deal with so many restrictions. We'll see when the time comes. Yu Jian didn't know that Lei Xingfeng was proficient in restrictions. He said, What do you mean? You can deal with restrictions? Xingfeng said, He's a restriction grandmaster. Of course he can deal with restrictions. Yu Jian was startled. He said, Are you serious? There are very few high-level cultivators who are proficient in restrictions. Xing Feng said, "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, but I know that we can't lose a Feng when we go to the Forbidden Land. With him, we will gain a lot." Yu Jian said with a smile, "Wow, that's great. We actually have a restriction grandmaster. I hate restrictions the most. It's so unbearable." Lei Xingfeng said, "I can't break every restriction. We'll see when the time comes." Xing Feng said, "No problem." Lei Xingfeng said, "This time, the three of us will go together. And, little sister, I'll send you to a safer place later." He patted Xin Yao's hand lightly. Xin Yao nodded silently. She also knew that it was unrealistic to go with them. She would be a burden to Lei Xingfeng. She always handled this well. She never wanted to be a burden to Lei Xingfeng. "Okay, big brother," Yu Jian said, "it's more dangerous outside. Little girl, you should wait at the exchange point. If you go out, it'll be hard for you to deal with them." He didn't know that Lei Xingfeng had such an abnormal thing as the mirror realm. Xin Yao smiled. "Don't worry. I might not be good at fighting, but it's not easy for others to find trouble with me," she said confidently. Lei Xingfeng said, "It's okay. Little sister's strength isn't bad." Yu Jian didn't say anything else. He knew that it wouldn't be good to say anything when she was so confident. Xing Feng said, "Let's go tomorrow. We'll rest here today." Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't have any objections." Yu Jian said, "I agree." Xing Feng said, "Okay. Then tomorrow, we'll still be here." Lei Xingfeng nodded. He stood up and said, "Little sister, let's go." The two turned and left. Lei Xingfeng said, "After this adventure, I'll bring you to the fantasy sky realm." Xin Yao said, "Okay, big brother. Take care of yourself. I'll go back." She opened the mirror realm and went back. Lei Xingfeng waited until Xin Yao's figure disappeared before he turned and went back to the exchange point. After sending Xin Yao away, Lei Xingfeng's heart finally calmed down. As long as his little sister was here, his nerves were always tense. In this kind of place, who knew what could happen? He didn't want his little sister to be hurt even a little. Lei Xingfeng relaxed and returned to the rest point. He found Xing Feng and sat down. Xing Feng asked, "You sent her away?" Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Yes, I sent her away. When I come back, I'll pick her up again." Xing Feng said, "If I can explore the Forbidden Land, I'll probably be able to collect all the materials needed to advance. When I succeed, I'll be able to leave this world and enter another one." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but dig his ears. What do you mean?" Xing Feng sighed. "Our level here is too low. Once I succeed in advancing, the resources in this world will be too little. The hope of gathering all the materials for the next advancement is very slim." Lei Xingfeng still didn't understand. He asked, "What do you mean by another world?" Xing Feng said, "This is the outer space. This is a heaven for low-level practitioners. But for high-level practitioners, this is still not enough." Lei Xingfeng said, Then where do we go?" Xing Feng said, "Through the Bolu wasteland and enter another place. That place is more suitable for high-level practitioners." Bolu wasteland? What place was that? Lei Xingfeng was confused. However, he sensitively felt that this might be the next step of his journey. Xing Feng said expectantly, "I've been waiting for this opportunity, waiting for this chance to advance. I originally thought that there was no hope, but in the end, I met you. With your help, I managed to escape. Do you know why I taught you such a cultivation method?" This was also what Lei Xingfeng was puzzled about. The cultivation technique that Xing Feng taught him, coupled with his understanding and cultivation of seals, allowed Lei Xingfeng to advance by leaps and bounds. His cultivation had skyrocketed. In his free time, he always wondered why Xing Feng did this. Xing Feng said, "That's because you're proficient in restrictions, but your strength is still very weak. Once your strength increases and your knowledge broadens, you'll be a great help to me. You'll also benefit from it. When I go to another world, I hope that you can come with me. That's the most suitable place for high-level practitioners." Lei Xingfeng nodded. He felt relieved. Since Xing Feng wanted his help, then he had to have the corresponding strength. Hence, it wasn't strange that Xing Feng taught him. But this way, Lei Xingfeng would benefit greatly. With Xing Feng's help, he would directly step into the ranks of high-level practitioners. Xing Feng said, "I'm just one step away. If I advance, I dare say that there won't be any opponents in this world. Unless there's an expert from another world, but I don't think they'll come." Lei Xingfeng was shocked. What level would Xing Feng reach if he advanced? He couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, "Old Xing, are you a pinnacle sovereign king now?" Xing Feng shook his head. "No, I'm not a pinnacle sovereign king. I'm one level higher, at the level of one true ring body." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He asked curiously, "One true ring body?" He remembered that when he was at the lower level, there were rumors of one true ring body. However, he had never heard of one true ring body. What kind of concept was that? Xing Feng said, "Yes, one true ring body is the pinnacle of the seal." Lei Xingfeng said, "Then how do you advance?" Xing Feng said, "Two true ring bodies, two seals. I'm currently cultivating the second seal. Once I succeed, I'll become a true ring body. At that time, I'll have the qualifications to go outside." Lei Xingfeng was completely stunned. Two seals? He seemed to have two seals too. Thinking of the pagoda-shaped 7 floors Lei Xingfeng asked, "If there are 7 seals together, will that be a true ring body?" Chapter 797. Xing Feng said, "Well, that's probably difficult. 7th ring sage body. It's possible to reach this step." "That's right. It's indeed a 7th ring sage body. But to reach this level, according to my estimation, it's omnipotent." Lei Xingfeng thought, "How is that possible? Omnipotent? Aren't they trapped to death by the spatial restriction?" Xing Feng said, "Actually, the cultivation techniques in our world focus on the foundation. The foundation is the seal. The outside world also cultivates seals, but they are different in the way they handle seals and true bodies. So, while the two are similar, they are also very different. Their true bodies are truly powerful, while ours are much weaker. The main problem is that the seals are weaker. But a seal, no matter how it is cultivated and refined, its power is limited. For example, when we have advanced to the monarch level, I believe that the power of our single seal is much stronger than the outside world. But when they cultivate 2 seals, we can't do anything about it. There's basically no way to compare." Lei Xingfeng said, "What if you cultivate dual seals at the down monarch rank?" Xing Feng waved his hand and said, "You have to reach the level of a high-level monarch to be able to cultivate 2 seals. Otherwise, you won't be able to handle it. Unfortunately, I was delayed and couldn't find the right materials until I reached the level of a peak monarch. You have to know that every time you add a seal, the quality of the seal can't be bad. It requires a huge amount of materials, high-level materials, and treasures. For cultivators like us, the burden is too big." Lei Xingfeng said, "What materials are you missing?" Xing Feng said, "Materials aside, I'm missing a spirit item. Unfortunately, I saw a fire spirit item before, but I didn't catch it. Let's see how lucky I am this time." Lei Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat. Spirit item. As expected, Lei Xingfeng was sure that the owner of Lei Yin on the 7th floor was a 7-ring true body expert from the outside world. Lei Xingfeng said, "Where is the outside world?" Xing Feng said, "It's quite far away. You have to pass through the Borual wasteland." After passing through a natural moat, you'll be able to get there." Lei Xingfeng was completely dumbfounded. He had never heard of the Borneo wasteland, but the heavenly moat had left a deep impression on him. Back then, he had passed through the heavenly moat to come here. Could it be that the outside world Xing Feng was talking about was his former hometown? However, he immediately rejected the idea. That was absolutely impossible. After thinking for a while, Lei Xingfeng asked, "Where is the heavenly moat to the outside world?" Xing Feng said, "In this area." He took out the Star Python record, which was a rough sketch of the starry sky outside the realm. Lei Xingfeng glanced around and immediately realized that this heavenly moat wasn't the one he had walked through. It was in the opposite direction. In other words, if Lei Xingfeng didn't stop and kept moving forward, he would encounter another heavenly moat. It just so happened that he had crossed the entire starry sky. Lei Xingfeng recalled that there were actually many invisible restrictions on the heavenly moat. At that time, he wasn't at his current level. If he went up the heavenly moat now, he was sure that he would gain something. Xingfeng put away the star python record and said, "I'll give you the coordinates. Also, don't spread the things I told you. Actually, I met an expert from the outside world by chance. I could be considered one of his disciples here. After he left, he told me that I could go to the outside world to find him once my cultivation reached 2 true ring bodies." Lei Xingfeng said, "Are there many people from the outside world here?" Xingfeng said, "Almost none. I once asked my master from the outside world. He said that the experts who come here are usually looking for some special items. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't choose to come here." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "So that's how it is. 7 true ring bodies. They were actually trapped to death by a spatial restriction." Lei Xingfeng suddenly thought of the fire seal. Perhaps it was a fight between 2 people? No, he suddenly realized. A simple spatial restriction wouldn't be able to trap such an expert to death. Instead, it was this restriction that caused the 2 to fight. They probably thought that they were attacking the restriction until they died, and didn't think of attacking each other. Spatial restrictions were relatively rare. Any restriction array, as long as a spatial restriction factor was added, even if it wasn't a spatial restriction, it was already very terrifying. Moreover, spatial restrictions were one of the most important elements of a restriction array. This kind of restriction array, if 1 person entered, it would be fine. At most, they would be trapped inside. If 2 or more people entered, it would be very troublesome unless 1 person restrained themselves from attacking. However, if 1 person didn't attack, it didn't mean that the others wouldn't attack. In the end, both sides would suffer. This was especially true when the 2 sides were about the same strength. Only now did Lei Xingfeng figure out why the 2 corpses in the restriction array existed. Thinking back to the restriction formation at that time, Xian Feng felt a chill in his heart. That formation was truly abnormal. Not only was it a chain of restrictions, the most important thing was that the space restrictions were extremely ingenious. Lei Xingfeng thought to himself, if he accidentally fell into this restriction, he would have no problem escaping if he was alone. However, if there were 2 people and the other person wasn't weak, then it would be very difficult for him to escape. This was because the spatial restriction would cause the other person to attack. Of course, if Lei Xingfeng wanted to leave, then he only needed to open the mirror realm. However, how many people had the mirror realm? According to Xingfeng, Lei Xingfeng discovered that he had 2 true ring bodies. In other words, his strength had increased to the point that it surpassed Xingfeng's. No wonder he didn't feel restrained when he saw Xingfeng. The threat seemed to have disappeared. Lei Xingfeng secretly rejoiced. He couldn't be unhappy. Referring to Lei Yin, who had 7 levels of the pagoda, he had unexpectedly become a dual-ring true body. No wonder he was so strong. Dual-ring true bodies were actually pursued by Xingfeng and other cultivators. The next day, the 3 gathered and left the exchange site. Xingfeng opened the secret door, and the 3 quickly entered. After coming out of the secret door, Lei Xingfeng discovered that this was a rare piece of green land. There were trees and grass, but there were fewer trees and more grass. There was also a thin stream on the ground. Lei Xingfeng exclaimed, "This is too rare. There are actually so many plants." Yu Jian said, "This place was nurtured by a wood-type cultivator. Because all the restrictions here have been completely destroyed, this area is a rare, peaceful place. Someone planted trees and grass seeds here. It didn't take long for this place to change its appearance. Many people are willing to come here to rest. It's a rare and comfortable place in this area." Xingfeng smiled. "Yes, this place can also be traded because it can replenish water. The underground river we encountered before can't be drunk." Lei Xingfeng said, "There are bloodworms in the underground river. Who dares to drink it? That's courting death." Yu Jian said, "That's a special underground river. There are other underground rivers here that aren't as scary." Xingfeng said, "The The scarier a place is, the better it will be. Only the most dangerous places can produce the best treasures. Lei Xingfeng and Yu Jian both agreed on this point. The more dangerous a place was, the harder it was for cultivators to enter and the longer they could stay there. Only then would they be able to find good things. This was already a rule. However, most cultivators didn't dare to enter such a dangerous place. It was obviously a place of death. Cultivators weren't that stupid. Only cultivators with a certain degree of certainty would enter. Even if they couldn't obtain anything, they could still escape unscathed. Any cultivator here wouldn't think about obtaining treasures first. They would think about how to obtain treasures under the premise of preserving their lives. This was the consensus of everyone, unless it was a newcomer who didn't know anything. However, such stupid people basically died in the restrictions. Those who were lucky enough to survive would learn the rules of survival here. Stepping on the soft, wild grass, Lei Xingfeng felt a lot better with a gentle breeze blowing. He couldn't help but say, "This place is not bad." Yu Jian smiled and said, "Actually, this place is very ordinary. It's mainly because there are very few plants in the fantasy sky realm. Suddenly coming here makes one feel very comfortable and comfortable. That's why so many people like it." Lei Xingfeng asked, "How do we get there?" Xingfeng said, "Just follow me. It's easy to recognize. Look ahead. There's a peak with a sharp peak. It's a very strange peak. As long as you walk to the foot of the peak, you'll be able to see the restricted area." Lei Xingfeng opened his eyes wide and observed carefully. Indeed, there was a vague shadow of a mountain. Yu Jian smiled and said, "It's very far. It'll take a long time to walk from here. If you walk fast, it'll take about 5 or 6 days. If you walk slowly, it'll take 7 or 8 days. Even 10 days is possible." Xingfeng said, "The main thing is that we can't fly. We can only walk. This will delay us a lot." The three of them walked quickly in the wilderness while chatting and exchanging information. They mainly talked about the distribution of restrictions, where there might be more treasures, where there were more dangers, and so on. Around the 6th day, the three of them arrived at the foot of the peak. This huge peak shocked Lei Xingfeng. He couldn't even see the peak of the peak from below. It was too high. Moreover, with Lei Xingfeng's eyes, the peak was covered with all kinds of restrictions. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Has anyone climbed up there?" Xingfeng said, "Actually, this is also a place to find materials. However, this peak is also very dangerous. Most people only dare to search around it. I don't think anyone dares to climb it." Lei Xingfeng just stared at it. Soon, he found traces of spatial restrictions on the mountainside. In other words, there were spatial restrictions on the upper part of the peak. This thing was simply a killing machine. If one didn't know anything about restrictions, the result would be death. Yu Jian said, "It's better not to provoke this mountain. There might not be anything good up there. However, it's definitely very dangerous to go up like this." He instinctively felt the danger and didn't want to go up the mountain. Just this point alone showed that this guy was a wily old fox. Chapter 798. Lei Xingfeng just noted down the coordinates. Maybe he would come back in the future, or maybe he would just forget about it. He didn't care, because there were better places to explore. The three crossed the peak and continued forward. On the way, they actually saw some solo cultivators. However, these solo cultivators would immediately stay away when they saw Xingfeng's group. They were very alert and didn't want to come in contact with them. The three of them could definitely suppress or even eliminate them. No one would want to come in contact with them under such circumstances. Lei Xingfeng was very surprised. In the fantasy sky realm, it was rare to see people in the wild. On the way, he had already seen 4 people, but they all ran away after a while. However, with so many experts appearing, it made him realize that this must be a very important treasure location. Xingfeng said, "As long as the cultivators know about this place, they will definitely come here to try their luck. Even if they can't really enter, there are still many good things in the outer area." Yu Jian said, "There are already fewer good things in the outer area. The chances of getting good materials or treasures are not high." Xingfeng said, "It's normal. With so many people there, every corner will be searched. When they see good things, no one will hold back. Of course, there will be fewer things. When they arrived in front of them, Lei Xingfeng was surprised to find that this forbidden area was so familiar. After carefully observing and secretly comparing the coordinates, he realized that the last time he came out of the maze, he was facing this forbidden area. However, he was on the other side at that time. When he first saw the forbidden area, Lei Xingfeng was also quite scared. This kind of forbidden area, as long as one was a forbidden master, as long as they knew about it, they wouldn't be willing to come in contact with it. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Xingfeng had been paying attention to Lei Xingfeng. Seeing him shake his head, he couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong? Is there a problem with the forbidden area?" Yu Jian also looked at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "Of course there is a problem. This is a complete restriction. You all know the meaning of a complete restriction. In other words, the restriction here is one ring on top of another. The entire land is a restriction. Once the restriction breaks out, it will be fun." Xingfeng's face was filled with disappointment. She originally thought that Lei Xingfeng would be able to solve the problem. She didn't expect that Lei Xingfeng would be able to see through the situation. Yu Jian asked, "Can't we get in?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "If there isn't any empty space in this restricted area, then going in is just courting death. If there is an empty space, then there's a place to hide. That way, there is still some hope. Looking at the current situation, it is very, very difficult. If we rush in like this, the result is basically certain. There is no other possibility of dying in there." Xingfeng and Yu Jian were both dumbfounded. Xingfeng knew that Lei Xingfeng wouldn't spout nonsense. If he said that they couldn't enter, then they really couldn't enter. Yu Jian didn't know Lei Xingfeng's strength and said, "Can't we try?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Try? How? Who will try?" Yu Jian was speechless. There was no way to answer this question. Was he supposed to say that he would go? That was impossible. Even if he wanted to die, this wasn't the way to go. Xingfeng pondered for a moment. He was unwilling to leave just like this. He said, "Feng, I know that you are very strong. Can you go in and check if there's an empty space in the restriction? Or maybe check if there's a place in this area that is not affected by the restriction?" Lei Xingfeng agreed. This was more reliable. Lei Xingfeng also wanted to check, so he said, "All right, help me stand guard. If someone tries to break in, block them. If there is a stupid guy, I will be in trouble." Xingfeng nodded and said, "No problem. No one is allowed to break in here." Yu Jian didn't understand for a moment. He said, "Why not?" Lei Xingfeng was too lazy to explain. He said, "I will go in and take a look. Old Xing, I will leave it to you." Xingfeng said, "Be careful." Then he said to Yu Jian, Feng is confident that he can enter the restriction without triggering the formation. However, if someone tries to break in, the formation will definitely explode. This will affect him. That is why he wants us to block others from breaking in." Yu Jian was shocked. He said, "Is that so? All right, we will block others. But can a Feng move within the restriction without triggering the restriction?" Xingfeng said, "That's nothing. He even brought me through a restriction formation before. However, we did not trigger any restrictions and passed through safely." Yu Jian was immediately impressed. He said, "Amazing, amazing. He has such a unique skill. Good guy. No wonder you want to be his partner. You're taking advantage of him." Xingfeng didn't say anything. He only thought, taking advantage? You don't know what price I have to pay to be his partner. Yu Jian suddenly saw Lei Xingfeng's walking posture. He couldn't help but laugh. He said, What is he doing? Ha, dancing. Ha, fun. Xingfeng looked at Lei Xingfeng's signature movement and knew that he was avoiding the restriction. Although he didn't know what he was avoiding, he knew that by relying on this strange movement, the restriction wouldn't be triggered. He and Lei Xingfeng used to do the same movement tacitly. The difficulty was still fresh in his memory. Yu Jian laughed for a while. Seeing Xingfeng's serious face, he couldn't laugh anymore. He laughed dryly and said, this is really interesting." Xingfeng said, "If you go in, it won't be interesting." Yu Jian didn't argue. He said, Yes. I don't have the ability to move freely in the restriction. Haha. Xing Feng suddenly said, "Damn, someone is coming. Stop him." They saw a person coming from the distance. He was about a few hundred meters away from them. Looking at his posture, it seemed like he was going to rush into the restriction. Xing Feng and Yu Jian were scared and rushed towards him. At the same time, Xing Feng shouted, "Hey, stop, stop." Seeing the two rushing over, the person quickened his pace. Just as he was about to touch the restriction, he suddenly released his true body and crashed into the restriction. Xing Feng and Yu Jian cursed at the same time. They released their true bodies and crashed into the restriction. They both had the same idea. Kill this bastard. Lei Xingfeng was still moving forward. Suddenly, the restriction nodes became chaotic. He didn't have time to curse before he flew out. Lei Yin released his true body. At this time, he still didn't understand what was going on. When his true body expanded, Lei Xingfeng had time to look back. Then, he saw Xing Feng and Yu Jian rushing into the restriction. There was another person in front of them who was trying his best to charge forward. This was because Lei Xingfeng could see through the restriction. When the restriction was triggered, everything within range would change. Even if Xing Feng and Yu Jian wanted to kill the person who rushed in, they had to find that person first. When the restriction exploded, Xing Feng immediately regretted. He shouldn't have rushed in. He was more experienced. He immediately stood still while Yu Jian foolishly charged forward. In a restriction, as long as you moved, the restriction would have a way to teleport you in. You wouldn't even be able to find the edge of the restriction. Lei Xingfeng's advantage was that not only could he see what the restriction showed him after it exploded, but he could also see through it. He could see the real ground before the restriction exploded. This was the real reason why the restriction couldn't trap him. Of the three people who entered the restriction, only Xing Feng didn't move. The other two were instantly teleported to the depths of the restriction. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about the changes in the restriction. He walked step by step toward the edge of the restriction where Xing Feng was. The entire restriction was chaotic. If he didn't fill his eyes with lightning and see through the restriction, Lei Xingfeng knew that every step he took was walking towards the inside of the restriction. But now, the restriction couldn't stop him. Countless attacks landed on his body. Lei Xingfeng didn't block at all. With his true body, he could completely block this level of attack. The two layers of Lei Yin gave him the so-called two true ring bodies. This true body was extremely powerful, and its defense was astonishing. Although these attacks were airtight, Lei Xingfeng could still easily block them. Yu Jian struggled with all his might in an attempt to return. When he had rushed out with Xing Feng, he had been careless. After releasing his true body, he had rushed into the restriction without thinking. After a few minutes, he had calmed down and couldn't help but regret. Why did he rush into this restriction? Even if he wanted to court death, this wasn't the way to do it. Even if he regretted it, it was too late. Yu Jian wasn't as experienced as Xing Feng. If he didn't move, Lei Xingfeng was confident that he could save him. But now that he was running around, Lei Xingfeng was temporarily at his wit's end. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was heading towards Xing Feng. Xing Feng didn't care about the changes in his surroundings. His feet were firmly planted on the ground, and he wasn't willing to move an inch. With his strength, once he tried his best to stand, even the restriction wouldn't be able to do anything. Countless attacks landed on his body. He was completely relying on his true body to block them. He didn't dare to fight back, afraid that the restriction would change greatly. If that happened, he really wouldn't know where he would be teleported to. Having been trapped by the restriction for many years, Xing Feng knew how perverse it was. Suddenly, a giant hand reached out from the chaos. Xing Feng instinctively wanted to fight back. However, he was smart because he saw that the giant hand was reaching towards him at an extremely slow speed. It didn't seem to be an attack. Almost at the same time, Xing Feng realized that it was Lei Xingfeng's hand. His mood immediately improved. The giant hand grabbed Xing Feng's arm and brought him to the side. After taking 7 or 8 steps, Xing Feng's eyes lit up. He had already left the restriction circle and was outside. Lei Xingfeng also walked out. Xing Feng's pupils contracted rapidly. He looked at Lei Xingfeng's true body in shock and said in shock, This is impossible. Heavens, this is a second ring true body? He didn't dare to be sure. At this moment, his heart was filled with endless doubts. Chapter 799. Lei Xingfeng said, "Perhaps. Old Xing, you guys," Xingfeng was annoyed. "A jerk, a reckless fellow. We didn't even have time to stop him and directly crashed into the restriction. The two of us stupidly rushed in and wanted to kill him, but we didn't expect to be trapped by the restriction. Oh, right, where's Rainy?" Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. "I couldn't save him in time. This fellow ran around the moment he entered the restriction. You know the consequences of running around in the restriction. If he didn't move, there was still hope of saving him. If he ran around, I can't do anything. He should have been teleported in by the restriction. I don't know where he is now." Xingfeng kept his real body and said, "When did you have two real ring bodies?" "Oh, right. Your Lei Yin is double-layered?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, it was an accidental success." Xingfeng said dejectedly, "Accidental? Oh, there's such a good thing? Let me do it accidentally this time." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. "It really was accidental." Xingfeng said, "A double-layered seal requires at least one spiritual item. Lightning-type spiritual items are very rare. Where did you get it?" Lei Xingfeng giggled. "I made a deal with Rainy. Yes, I used the Jade Sprout's location to exchange for a big thunder crystal." Xingfeng said, "There's a spiritual item in the big thunder crystal?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, there is a spiritual item. However, it still needs to be nurtured. It's a newly formed spiritual item and doesn't have spiritual intelligence." Xingfeng didn't know that with Lei Xingyao around, Lei Xingfeng's lightning-type spiritual items grew extremely quickly. In addition, Lei Xingfeng knew how to control space, so he could send in the required energy and materials. Otherwise, he could only watch helplessly as the spiritual items relied on their own energy to grow. That speed would be much slower. Xingfeng shook his head and sighed. "This is already very good. With the spirit item, you'll have the foundation of seals. Then, it will be possible to stack more seals. You are really lucky." He had been busy for so many years without success, but Lei Xingfeng had become an expert with two true ring bodies in such a short time. This made him very disappointed, and he was determined to enter the restricted area to search for treasures. Lei Xingfeng turned around to look at the array. It was already foggy, and he couldn't see anything clearly. A zigzagging line was revealed, and the two were clearly separated. One side could clearly see the scenery of the wilderness, while the other side was covered in fog. Faint sounds could be heard from within, and the ground was trembling slightly. Xingfeng said, "There is no way to save him. You don't have to go in either. It's too dangerous. Even if I don't know much about restrictions, I know the difference between the center and the edge. Once you enter, it will be hard to get out." Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with a silver light. He was still looking at the changes in the array. To him, this was also a form of learning. From the changes in the array, he could deduce the formation and layout of restrictions. This was already Lei Xingfeng's habit. After a while, Lei Xingfeng said, "This restriction is too sick. Even if a part of it is destroyed, it will quickly recover. It can even be said that it automatically recovers very quickly." Xingfeng was stunned and said, "There's such a restriction?" Lei Xingfeng had seen and learned how to control space. What was so special about a restriction that could recover automatically? Xingfeng said, "No wonder this array has never been broken before. Even if there was an almighty, they still couldn't break it. It's actually a restriction that can recover automatically. It's really sick. A phone, what about Rainy?" Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. He didn't know what to do either. There was no way to save her. Previously, he could still see a faint shadow through this pair of eyes. Now, even the shadow couldn't be seen. She was probably deep in the array. Even if he wanted to save her, he couldn't find her. "We can't save her. There's no choice. It depends on his luck. If he can find an empty spot, he might be able to escape. If not, he will be tortured to death by the array." Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh bitterly and said, "All right, what should we do?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Wait. We can only wait. This corner of the array is already in chaos. We can only wait for it to calm down. Xingfeng thought about it and couldn't do anything. He nodded and said, "That's the only way." Lei Xingfeng took out a table and 2 chairs. He said, "Have a seat." Everyone sat down. Xingfeng couldn't be bothered about Rainy anymore. He had more questions in his heart for Lei Xingfeng to answer. How did you make the 2 Lei Yin join together? Lei Xingfeng said, "It's very simple. I just used a restriction." This sentence almost made Xingfeng vomit blood. He said, "Use a restriction? You didn't use other methods?" Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood. This guy had other methods of cultivation. It shouldn't have much to do with restrictions. Instantly, he was interested. He said, "Isn't that so? I used a restriction to link the 2 seals together. A restriction array can link the 2 seals together. As long as a period of time passes, the naturally formed restrictions within the seals will interact with each other and grow. Of course, it also requires a large amount of energy and materials for the seals." Xingfeng was silent for a long time before he sighed. "Sai, why didn't I study restrictions in the past? What a pity." Lei Xingfeng said, "What method did you use to combine the 2 seals?" Xingfeng pondered for a moment. After thinking for a while, he realized that there was no need to keep it a secret anymore. The others had already succeeded, but the teachings he had received were not like this. The process was very complicated, and it required a lot of things. He said, "Spirit items are a must, and the seals are not created individually and then combined together. You have to use your original seals to create a new seal on top of them. It is very difficult, and the materials used are even more frightening. I have been collecting for so many years, and I barely have enough. I still need some. Of course, I'm already cultivating. As long as I have enough materials, I have an 80% chance of success. That's why I said I'm about to advance." Xingfeng suddenly became excited. He said, "Right, if I have a ready-made seal, can you help me set up a restriction and then link the 2 seals together?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "That's too dangerous. It's easy for problems to arise. Once problems arise, it'll be hard to solve. After all, it's your seal, not mine." Xingfeng nodded in understanding. He was also afraid of restrictions. No matter how high one's cultivation was, as long as one was a cultivator, no one would underestimate restrictions. He said, "What a pity. This is a shortcut. I didn't expect to be able to achieve 2 true ring bodies." Lei Xingfeng said, 2 true ring bodies. Is that considered sovereign king level? Xingfeng said, "No, it's beyond the sovereign king level. Everyone knows that once one has 2 true ring bodies, they're Dao Saints. A Dao Saint expert. I've only seen 2 people, and one of them was my master. I didn't expect you to be one too. You're a miracle." Lei Xingfeng asked, how many times can the seals overlap?" Xingfeng didn't understand immediately. He said, "What?" Lei Xingfeng said, "When 2 seals combine, it'll be 2 true ring bodies. If 3 or 4 seals combine, it'll be 3 true ring bodies. 4 true ring bodies?" Xingfeng smiled. "Of course, but think about it. How much resources and energy do you need to refine one seal? 3 true ring bodies means 3 seals. I don't have any confidence right now. If it's 2 true ring bodies, I might be able to succeed. But 3 or 4 true ring bodies? Forget about it." Lei Xingfeng's heart pounded. He still had 6 Lei Yin, and each one had a spirit item. Now he was feeding them with 10,000-year spirit liquid and pure natural crystals. Once his Lei Yin completely merged, he would be able to fuse the 3rd seal. In other words, he didn't need to find any materials or energy. In the end, if he didn't make any mistakes, he would be able to achieve 8 true ring bodies. What kind of concept was that? He didn't even know himself. Xingfeng said, "2nd true ring body, a Dao Saint expert. I think he can dominate the world." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "How many true ring bodies does your master have?" Xingfeng said, "2nd true ring body. Maybe 3 or 4 by now. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him in a long time. As long as I can reach 2 true ring bodies and become a Dao Saint expert, I'll have the right to enter the outside world." He was thinking about going to the outside world, and Lei Xingfeng was also interested. According to Xingfeng, there were more materials and treasures in the outside world, and it would be easier to cultivate. In truth, Lei Xingfeng also knew that it wouldn't be so easy. The two corpses he saw at the underground river were Dao saints with 7 true ring bodies. If they came here to search for materials, then the outside world wouldn't be any better. However, Lei Xingfeng also knew that there might be more materials in the outside world, or there might be more Dao saints. Then, there would be some kind of interaction. If he couldn't find people of the same level to interact with, it would be hard to improve. Looking at Xingfeng, Lei Xingfeng's eyes flashed. He understood why Xingfeng didn't have any interest in 3 true ring bodies. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't have a cultivation technique. At most, he only had 2 true ring bodies. 3 true ring bodies. Old Xing, do you know any cultivation techniques? Xingfeng was stunned and shook his head. No, back then my master only had 2 true ring bodies. How could he teach me 3 true ring bodies? As expected, Lei Xingfeng nodded. Xingfeng only had the cultivation technique he wanted to use now and didn't have any further cultivation techniques. This meant that after he reached 2 true ring bodies, he would have to go to the outside world. Not to mention materials and energy, he would have to go to the outside world to cultivate. Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, "The second fire seal has already formed, but I don't know if it's right." "A phone. Can you help me take a look?" Lei Xingfeng was instantly interested and said, Okay, let me take a look." This would be helpful to him. After all, he was the only one who had successfully merged 2 Lei Yin. Chapter 800. Xingfeng stood up and walked to the side. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly stood up and walked over. Xingfeng said, "I will enlarge the fire seal. Take a look." The fire seal flew out and floated in front of Lei Xingfeng. The entire fire seal expanded until it was the size of a wash basin. Layers of flames rose from the top. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. In order to see clearly, he immediately channeled lightning into his eyes. This way, not only could he see the surface of the fire seal, he could also see the inside of the fire seal. This was something that Xingfeng did not expect. In other words, once Xingfeng's fire seal was released and placed in front of Lei Xingfeng, there was nothing that could hide from Lei Xingfeng. Xi and Feng only saw 1 layer of this fire seal. The other layer was illusory. In the flames, if one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't be able to see it clearly. What Xi and Feng was paying attention to was the restriction between the 2 layers. In the end, he realized that this restriction wasn't formed yet, it was only a framework. In other words, Xingfeng's first fire seal hadn't activated the true restriction yet. Due to the lack of spirit items, Lei Xingfeng realized that although the fire seal was extremely powerful, it revealed an abnormally dull feeling. It was completely different from his Lei Yin. This was the difference. Lei Xingfeng slightly analyzed the restriction formed within the fire seal and the layout of the entire fire seal. He was very dissatisfied. This proved the importance of spirit items. With spirit items, the entire seal would come alive. In this aspect, no seal could compare to a seal with spirit items. Lei Xingyao's wood seal was even better than Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin. Although it was only 1 wood seal and did not combine with a second wood seal, just this 1 wood seal alone was abnormally powerful. It was also filled with vitality, as if it was alive. Lei Xingfeng sighed. A seal and a spirit item were enough to change the nature of a practitioner. Xingfeng asked nervously, "How is it? Is my seal okay?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, I've seen it. Put away first." Releasing seals also consumed energy, especially Xingfeng's fire seal. Without a spirit item, the consumption was even greater. Xingfeng put away the fire seal and asked, "Do you have any opinions?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Take a look at my Lei Yin." Just saying it was not easy for others to understand, but showing it to others would make it very clear. Lei Yin flew out and hovered in front of Xingfeng. Xingfeng clasped his hands behind his back and craned his neck to take a closer look. He was different from Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng could see the inside of the seal, but he could only see the surface. The two layers of Lei Yin were clear. Soon, Xingfeng discovered the difference between the Lei Yin and his own fire seal. The Lei Yin was full of vitality and had an indescribable sense of beauty. Moreover, it gave him the feeling that this thing was alive. This feeling was so strong that when he thought of his own fire seal, Xingfeng immediately realized the difference. Xingfeng said, "Is it because of the spirit item?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "It seems to be because of the spirit item. Without a spirit item, the seal is too rigid and has no spirituality." Xingfeng sighed and said, "Spirit items are hard to find. As long as there is a spirit item, the second seal can also produce spirit items after many years of cultivation. However, the first seal cannot produce spirit items." Lei Xingfeng said, "The first seal can also produce spirit items, but it is very difficult." Xingfeng said, "How do you know it can produce spirit items?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I can infer that someone must have produced spirit items in the first seal, which is why he has two true ring bodies." Xingfeng thought for a moment and nodded. "Yes, that makes sense. However, I am certain that my seal cannot produce spirit items." Lei Xingfeng said, "According to what I know, the wood element is the easiest to produce spirit items, followed by the earth element. The water and ice elements are also slightly easier. The most difficult ones are the metal and lightning elements. The fire element is still considered easy. That's right, the dark element is also easy. However, a spirit item produced from the dark element will have a huge impact on the master and will easily cause problems." Xingfeng said, "I agree with the other elements, but the lightning element is not the most difficult. It is about the same as the fire element." Lei Xingfeng said, "In any case, it is not easy to produce spirit items." Xingfeng said, "I don't know what conditions are needed to produce spirit items. If we really can't find one, it will be good if we can produce one, even if it is weak, Sai." Lei Xingfeng said, "You have to be patient. We have waited for so many years. Do you still care about this little bit of time?" Xingfeng said, "There is no point in being anxious. Forget it. Let's see what happens this time," he said without confidence. Lei Xingfeng stared at the violent restriction formation and said, "The restriction is moving." Xingfeng said, "What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The restriction on our side has already calmed down. However, the restriction in front has been activated. This means that Yu Jian went over there. He is not in danger for now." Xingfeng asked casually, "How do you know that his life is not in danger?" After saying that, he realized that he had said something wrong. As expected, Lei Xingfeng said, "If he is injured or dead, the entire restriction will stop." Xingfeng said, "Then can we go in?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "I don't know yet. However, Yu Jian and the other guy rushed in. This gives me a chance to see if we can go in or not. Let's wait." Xingfeng said in surprise, there is such a benefit." Lei Xingfeng said, "Originally, there wasn't. I had to go down there personally to investigate. Now there is. Yu Jian and the other guy who rushed in foolishly are my scouts." Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Those two are unlucky. To be honest, I had the urge to kill the guy who rushed in. At that time, I was hot-headed and rushed into the formation. Luckily, I reacted quickly. When the restriction was activated, I came to my senses and didn't dare to move. As expected, I waited until you came." Lei Xingfeng also laughed. He said, "This is because we have worked together for a long time. We have a tacit understanding." Xingfeng thought about it and also felt that it was dangerous. It could only be said that the two of them had a tacit understanding. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stopped moving in the first place. He instinctively felt that Lei Xingfeng would come back to save him. Lei Xingfeng didn't disappoint him and saved him. Unfortunately, Yu Jian didn't have such a tacit understanding. If he rushed in recklessly, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't be able to save him. He couldn't put himself in danger just to save Yu Jian. This was especially so when it was an unfamiliar large-scale restriction formation. Lei Xingfeng was afraid of this kind of restriction formation. Staring at the restriction formation, Lei Xingfeng's eyes emitted a silver light from time to time. This way, he could clearly see the changes in the restriction formation. He could also see the disturbance in the restriction formation in the distance. He could also vaguely see the smoke rising. It was Yu Jian and the other guy who were struggling. After about half a day, the restriction formation gradually calmed down. Lei Xingfeng's spirit was immediately lifted. He said, "In such a short time, do you think they will be killed by the restriction formation?" Xing Feng said decisively, "Impossible. No matter how strong the restriction formation is, it will be difficult to kill two people in one go. They are both high-level cultivators, monarch-level cultivators." Lei Xingfeng said, "Look, the restriction formation has calmed down. This means that they found an empty spot in the restriction formation. This way, the restriction formation won't continue to be activated. If there's an empty spot, then we—" Before he could finish, there was a tremor in the distance. The entire ground shook. Xing Feng said, the restriction formation activated again?" Lei Xingfeng stared for a moment and said, "It's not a restriction formation." He immediately reacted and said, "It should be Yu Jian and that guy fighting." Indeed, the two of them saw two shadows fighting. Because they were really tall, they could see some traces even from far away. Xing Feng said, "Yes, Yu Jian probably hates that guy to death. He caused him to fall into the restriction formation." Lei Xingfeng said, "If that's the case, we can go in. As long as there is an empty spot in the restriction formation, then we will have a place to rest. Even if we touch the restriction formation, we won't have to be afraid. If we can find a place to rest, then we can go in deeper." Xing Feng said happily, "Good. Let's go in." Lei Xingfeng said, "Same old rules. This should be the periphery of the restriction formation, so it should be easier to go in. We don't know much about the situation inside, but if we follow the old rules here, it shouldn't be a big problem." Xing Feng knew how to follow Lei Xingfeng. Although it was very awkward to walk, it was safe and their speed was not slow. He stood up and said, "Then let's hurry up and go." It was hard for him to calm down because of the anticipation of the spiritual item. Lei Xingfeng stood up and put away the table and chair. Then he said, "Let's go faster this time. Who knows if these two guys will affect the restriction formation?" Xing Feng said, "That's right. Don't worry, I will follow you." The two of them had already cultivated this kind of tacit understanding. Lei Xingfeng came to the edge of the restriction formation and said, "Ready. Good, let's go in together." He stepped into the restriction formation, and Xing Feng followed him closely until they were close enough. The two of them danced and walked forward. Back and forth, back and forth. Xing Feng was already used to these twists and turns. Moreover, he realized that this time, it wasn't too difficult. The range of their movements was not big, and there were relatively few movements. There were even some places where they could walk quickly for some distance before they started dancing again. After walking for about an hour, they heard a clear roar and angry scolding in front of them. The two of them perked up, knowing that they were almost there. Finally, under Lei Xingfeng's lead, the two of them stepped out of the restriction formation. With Lei Xingfeng's insight, he knew that this empty spot was relatively large. Then he saw Yu Jian and the other guy attacking each other. Both of them released their true bodies, but their strength was about the same, so they were in a deadlock. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng released their true bodies and rushed forward. When Yu Jian saw the two of them enter, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He shouted, "Kill this guy." When the other guy saw Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng enter, he immediately panicked. This guy attacked randomly with a few punches and tried to escape, but where could he escape to? Moreover, Yu Jian was entangling him, so he had no choice but to continue fighting. There was no way he could escape. Chapter 8:01. Lei Xingfeng rushed behind that person and blocked his way. The three of them formed a triangle and surrounded that person. That person's true body was shining with silver light. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. This was a metal attribute true body. Metal attribute true bodies usually had two colors, silver and gold. This guy's was silver and shining with silver light. It was very impressive. Yu Jian cursed. This bastard is probably here for the first time. He doesn't know the rules and almost got us killed. Kill him." As he spoke, he threw a punch. That person saw Eugene attack and didn't say anything. He also threw a punch, and the two fists collided with a loud explosion. Xingfeng wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he focused on Lei Xingfeng. He had two true ring bodies. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't envious. Lei Xingfeng suddenly threw a punch and shouted, "Catch!" That person was clearly a little flustered. He turned around and threw a punch, trying to block Lei Xingfeng's attack. But when the fist met, that person was frightened. A huge and unstoppable force surged from a fist. In an instant, the fist and arm of the real body collapsed. The force pushed him, making it impossible for him to stand. He sat on the ground with a bang, and one of his arms was gone. This punch also scared Eugene and Xingfeng. It was too strong. They felt like they couldn't block it. One had to know that this person had a metal attribute true body. It was extremely sturdy. However, it was shattered by Lei Xingfeng's punch. Lei Xingfeng didn't even use his lightning. The difference was simply unbelievable. This punch also destroyed that person's confidence. He originally thought that he could deal with it. At the very least, he could escape into the restriction. No matter how strong the restriction was, it couldn't kill him. He didn't expect that he couldn't even take a punch. He shouted, "Stop! Stop! I admit defeat." For a moment, Lei Xingfeng was stunned. This was the first time he saw a high-level cultivator admit defeat. Xingfeng was more experienced. He said, "Withdraw your true body." Retracting his true body was equivalent to disarming himself. That person hesitated for a moment before retracting his true body. It was a middle-aged man with an unruly face. But when he saw Lei Xingfeng, he was shocked and said, Who are you? I can't even take one F***king punch." Eugene also looked at Lei Xingfeng in surprise. He never thought that Lei Xingfeng was stronger than him, but that punch just now was really just a casual punch. He could clearly tell that Lei Xingfeng didn't use much strength in that punch. However, with just one punch, his opponent lost. He lost willingly because he knew that as long as Lei Xingfeng continued to attack, his opponent's true body would definitely collapse. Once his true body was revealed, that person would die for sure. This was one of the reasons why that person admitted defeat so easily. The other reason was that 3 experts were ganging up on one person. Even if the 3 of them were about the same level as him, he would still lose and die. He had no choice but to admit defeat. He didn't even struggle. He followed Xingfeng's instructions and withdrew his true body. This meant that if any of the 3 wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to resist. Because once he withdrew his true body, his defense would be greatly reduced. He wouldn't be able to block a single punch or kick from anyone present. Lei Xingfeng didn't plan to kill anyone, so he also withdrew his true body. Eugene saw that person admit defeat and gradually calmed down. He knew that it wasn't easy for human experts to cultivate. It was meaningless to vent his anger and kill, so he also withdrew his true body. As Xingfeng withdrew his true body, that person heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that his life was temporarily saved. Xingfeng said, "It's normal that you can't take his punch. He's a Dao Saint expert." That person obviously didn't know what a Dao Saint expert was. He said, "Dao Saint expert? What does that mean?" However, Eugene knew. His face was filled with shock and fear. He said in shock, "Dao Saint, that's not what we call it here. It's what the outside world calls it." Xingfeng was a little surprised. He said, "You also know that Dao Saint is what the outside world calls it." That person also looked at Eugene curiously. Eugene said, "This is what I heard. It's also the first time I've seen such an expert. The strongest person here is only a peak monarch. That's basically the end. However, I heard that there are even stronger people in the outside world. They're called Dao Saints. However, I don't know how they reach this level." That person laughed bitterly. He was even more vicious than a peak monarch. He could only accept this loss. Xingfeng said, "All right, what's your name? I told you to stop. Why did you run so fast?" That person laughed bitterly. "Of course I had to run. Even if I had to charge at the formation, It's better than facing the two of you. My name is Hong Ba. Lei Xingfeng said, do you know that charging at the formation like this will kill people? I'm in the formation. They're guarding it for me. It's to prevent people from charging at the formation. Hong Ba lowered his head and said, you can't blame me. How would I know that there were people in the formation? When I saw the two of them charging at me, I thought that it would be bad for me. Hence, I charged at the formation. I thought that once I entered the formation, you wouldn't be able to do anything. Hence, he couldn't help but admit defeat. There were 3 opponents. He couldn't even handle the weakest Yu Dian, not to mention the stronger Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng. If he really didn't care, it wouldn't be strange for him to be beaten to death. Basically, when one reached the stage of a high-level cultivator, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't kill each other unless it was absolutely necessary. Firstly, it wasn't easy for humans to cultivate to a high level. Secondly, when they wanted to kill the other party, they would often be injured. When a high-level cultivator fought with his life on the line, it was definitely a form of madness. It wasn't that there weren't any moves that would cause both sides to perish together. This made people rather wary. Of course, there were some high-level cultivators who liked to kill. However, these people were in the minority. Lei Xingfeng circled around. He could clearly see that this was a long and narrow, empty area. It was about 1,000 meters long and 100 meters wide. It was a good resting place for the outer formation and the inner formation. Xingfeng asked, what's wrong? Lei Xingfeng said, the two of them are lucky to be able to find such a resting place. If they were on the other side, I don't know where they would be sent. It's obvious that this place was originally destroyed. It was later restored by the formation. The formation here hasn't been restored yet. Xingfeng said, there's still someone who could destroy the formation here. He was greatly surprised. Actually, ever since Xian Feng saw the 7th layer of the lightning seal and understood the situation of the outside world, he understood that there would definitely be someone who could break through the seal. However, the area of the seal was too large. No matter how high a practitioner's cultivation was, they wouldn't be able to destroy the entire seal. Firstly, it wasn't worth it, and secondly, there was no need for it. The specialty of the seal was that if it wasn't completely destroyed, then sooner or later, the seal would completely recover. Seeing this empty area, Lei Xingfeng had the confidence to enter. He believed that this wasn't the only empty area. Since someone had destroyed a part of the formation, he must have left many empty areas. This was because the formations in some places couldn't be restored so easily. In other words, Lei Xingfeng could find a way to enter the formation. As long as he found a resting place, he could enter the deepest part of the formation. Even if he had to force his way in, he had a certain degree of confidence. Xingfeng quickly reacted and said, was it done by someone from the outside? Lei Xingfeng said, I can't be sure. However, I believe that someone who can destroy a part of the formation is very strong. It's very difficult for us high-level cultivators to do so. Xingfeng said, yes, no matter who did it, we can use it, right? Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, yes, that's what I mean. Someone destroyed a part of the formation. Even if the formation here can be restored, it will take time. This will leave a lot of empty areas and give us a chance to rest. If we stay in the formation all the time, there will be problems sooner or later. With a place to rest, there will be less danger. In fact, Lei Xingfeng now realized that after becoming a second ring true ring, his Lei Yin was very different. Originally, he used a lot of energy, especially during battle. His energy consumption was very fast, and he couldn't even replenish it. Now, his energy consumption was so low that Lei Xingfeng couldn't believe it. In other words, he could fight for a long time. Xingfeng said, is that so? Okay, let's continue. Yu Jian said, can we go deeper? Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, we should be able to. However, if the 3 of us go in, we will have to force our way in. I can't bring the 2 of you with me. Xingfeng said, will we use chains? The so-called chains were used before entering the formation. They would release their true bodies and use chains to communicate with each other. This way, they wouldn't be confused by the formation. As long as Lei Xingfeng could walk correctly, the 2 of them would follow. They didn't need to find a direction themselves. Yu Jian didn't have any experience in this area. He said doubtfully, "Chains? You won't use chains to tie the three of us together, right?" Xing Feng said, "What tie together? It's tied together. Otherwise, would you dare to go in? We don't even know where we will go. You don't know anything about formations. You were lucky to find an empty space with a formation. Will you be so lucky next time?" Yu Jian was speechless. His knowledge of formations was even worse than Xing Feng's. Entering a formation was equivalent to putting their lives on the line. After a while, Yu Jian said, "Okay, I understand." He finally understood that the chains were only used to prevent him from running around. He had to follow the two of them. Hong Ba said, "Me too." Xing Feng said, "It's none of your business." Yu Jian also said, "Find your own way. We won't take you with us." Hong Ba smiled bitterly. He knew that the other party was being polite. If they weren't, they would definitely make him scram as far away as possible. Chapter 802. Lei Xingfeng didn't want to take Hong Ba with him. He wasn't a good person and said, "Let's go this way." He pointed to a point 100 meters away and said, "Go there. The restriction is the weakest." Only now did Hong Ba understand. Exine Feng not only had a high cultivation, but more importantly, this fellow actually knew about restrictions. This was too rare. He really wanted to follow them. This was a rare opportunity, but he didn't dare to. He could only watch as the three of them took out their chains and released their real bodies, tying the chains to their wrists before he watched as the three of them entered the large formation. Hong Ba clenched his teeth and rushed into the restriction array. Lei Xingfeng and the other two's true bodies had just entered the array when the array was activated. Lei Xingfeng was in the front, Xing Feng was on the left, and Yu Jian was on the right. The three of them rushed forward in a triangular formation. Xing Feng and Yu Jian were shocked to find that Lei Xingfeng was very fast, but they couldn't increase their speed. This was because the power of the seals was different. Lei Xingfeng instantly felt the steel chains on his wrist tighten. He immediately understood that they couldn't keep up. He sighed inwardly and could only slow down. As for the attacks from the restrictions, he could almost ignore them. They couldn't affect his true body at all. Since Lei Xingfeng blocked most of the restriction attacks in front, both Xing Feng and Yu Jian felt much more relaxed. The most important thing was that Lei Xingfeng wouldn't get lost. Xing Feng was the most confident about this. The three of them were very close. They had no choice but to be closer. Otherwise, the steel chains would be easily broken by the restrictions. Only by being close could they ensure that the chains wouldn't break. Moreover, if they were in danger, the other two would have a chance to rescue them. They supported each other and took care of each other. This path wasn't difficult. Lei Xingfeng suddenly looked back and shouted, "That guy also rushed into the array." Xing Feng said, "That bastard. We should have crippled him just now." Yu Jian looked back, but couldn't see anything. He saw all kinds of lights and countless restriction attacks. He shouted, "I didn't see anyone following us." Xing Feng said, "You don't know anything about restrictions. Of course you can't see." Only Lei Xingfeng could clearly see that Hong Ba was running around randomly. He was gradually being carried away by the restrictions. They didn't have to worry about him. There would naturally be restrictions to deal with him. Exine Feng suddenly shouted, "The first wave of attack is here. Stand still. Don't move. Prepare to receive it." Xing Feng's spirit and immediately stood in place. Lei Xingfeng. Lei's true body to the strongest. Lei Xingfeng. Yu Jian was a little confused. What did he mean by the first wave of attacks? Didn't the attacks, just now, count? Yu Jian was frightened. He had seen many restrictions and had broken through many of them, but this was the first time he had seen such an attack. Countless fire snakes, countless golden snakes, and snakes of various colors. The so-called snakes only had the shape of snakes. In other words, they were all rope-like attacks that swarmed over. It let out a sharp whistling sound as it tore through the air. This thing was like a flying spear, but it also looked like a twisting snake as it shot over. Lei Xingfeng blocked the majority of the attacks. Because his body was the largest, when the attacks hit Lei Xingfeng's true body, they instantly shattered. If they were fire snakes, then the flames would burn on his true body. Lei Xingfeng's lightning would completely shake them off. Xingfeng and Yu Jian didn't want the attacks to land on their true bodies. They waved their fists and attacked wildly. Boom, 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 boom. Following that, the shattered fire snakes and golden snakes reformed as the restrictions changed. They became even larger fire snakes that once more shot toward the three of them. Lei Xingfeng wanted to test the power of his true body, so he didn't attack. He only used his palm to scatter the attacks aimed at his head. As for the attacks that landed on his body, he didn't care at all. At the end of this wave of attacks, it formed a huge fire dragon of all kinds of colors. This time, it didn't charge at them. Instead, it crazily coiled around them. This thing was actually 1,000 meters long and as thick as a water tank. It swept over them. As long as it encountered any obstruction, it would wrap around the three of them. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Careful! Don't let it touch you." Xingfeng's huge hand grabbed the fire dragon's body. Yu Jian did the same, but he was screaming from the heat. He wasn't a fire attribute cultivator, so his true body didn't have much resistance to fire. Lei Xingfeng also did the same. He stretched out his hands and grabbed a section of the fire dragon's body. Xingfeng roared and tried to tear the fire dragon apart. He tried twice, but he didn't succeed. He only managed to stretch the fire dragon a bit longer. Lei Xingfeng didn't even try to tear it apart. Instead, he clenched his fists. In an instant, 2 loud explosions rang out. He had actually crushed the fire dragon's body. The fire dragon that had coiled around them instantly turned into flames after being crushed. This wave of attacks ended. The restriction formation needed to gather power. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Let's go." Yu Jian still hadn't recovered from his shock. What a powerful restriction! Xingfeng said indifferently, "This is only the first wave of attacks. They'll get stronger and stronger." Yu Jian followed behind him. He said with lingering fear, "How are we going to deal with this?" It was fine at the beginning, but the final attack was truly terrifying. He knew in his heart that if Lei Xingfeng hadn't crushed the fire dragon, it would have been very difficult for them to escape. Lei Xingfeng said, "This restriction formation is rather complicated. There are attacks of all attributes. If it was just one type, it would have been difficult to deal with. Now it's much better. The heterogeneous attacks have given us a chance." Yu Jian said, "I can still deal with the first wave of attacks. At least I won't be a burden to everyone. I don't know if I can deal with the second or third wave. I suddenly have no confidence." Xingfeng said, "As long as we can find a blank spot, there won't be a problem." Yu Jian said, "Why?" Lei Xingfeng said, "This is the restrictions rule. Once we find a blank spot and enter it, the entire restriction will stop. Then, after we rest and enter it again, the restriction will start attacking again. This way, we'll have a chance to breathe." Yu Jian said, "What happens if there are no blank spots?" Xingfeng spoke, "Then the restriction will send out wave after wave of attacks, with each attack increasing in power until you can't take it anymore. Tell me, isn't the blank spot of the restriction very important?" Yu Jian trembled. This restriction was abnormal. Its attacks would continue to increase, but his strength was already so strong. It wouldn't increase. In other words, as long as there was enough time and the restriction was strong enough, would definitely obtain the final victory. No matter how strong you were, your endurance would definitely be inferior to that of a restriction formation. Lei Xingfeng said, "Only a few restrictions have this kind of superimposed attack. It's considered quite powerful, but it's not the most powerful restriction. It's better not to encounter the most powerful restriction." The three of them moved quickly in the large formation. Lei Xingfeng spoke while carefully looking for a blank spot or a blank spot. Xingfeng asked curiously, "What's the most powerful restriction?" Lei Xingfeng said, "A spatial restriction. It's definitely one of the most powerful restrictions. Basically, once you enter it, you'll die. Of course, if the spatial restriction attacks, I don't know what it'll be like. However, I feel that the attack will definitely be special. It's best if we don't encounter it." Xingfeng said, "I really haven't encountered any spatial restriction." Jian said a little embarrassedly. I've never heard of any spatial restriction, much less seen one. Lei Xingfeng didn't tell them that even a Tao saint with 7 true ring bodies had died in a spatial restriction. Even if he told them, they probably wouldn't believe him. Xingfeng said, I hope we don't encounter it this time. Lei Xingfeng's heart tightened. According to his thinking, he was most afraid of such words. The more he didn't want to encounter it, the more likely he would encounter it. In his previous life, such words were called crow's beak. The good didn't come true, but the bad did. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't think too much about it. The 3 of them continued moving forward. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw Hong Ba running around in a sorry state. It seemed like he wasn't prepared for restrictions at all. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but admire him. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. This guy was a classic example. Suddenly, the large formation in the distance activated. Lei Xingfeng stopped in shock. Xingfeng said, A phone, why did you stop? Lei Xingfeng suddenly laughed and said, Interesting. Someone is trying to break through the formation again. Can't they see that there's someone in the formation? Although he was laughing, there was no humor in it at all. Xingfeng could even feel Lei Xingfeng's anger. He was puzzled and asked, What does it have to do with us if they break through the formation? Xingfeng spoke. This formation is a single entity. If they try to break it, they'll affect us as well. The more people there are, the stronger the formation will be. These idiots. Jian said. Then what should we do? Lei Xingfeng said. What should we do? Let's go. The formation's attacks will be different in a while. If these guys come in, we'll let them enjoy the second wave of attacks. It'll be much stronger than the first. Let's go. The 3 of them quickened their pace. Unfortunately, Jian held everyone back. He was too slow. Xingfeng was much faster than him. As for Lei Xingfeng, ever since he became a second ring true king, his heavy body had become lighter. He could even barely run. In the end, Xingfeng was also anxious. He said, A phone. Let's each take an arm and drag each other. Yu Dian's face was full of embarrassment. Lei Xingfeng said, Okay. He reached out and grabbed one of Yu Dian's arms. Xingfeng grabbed the other arm. The 2 of them dragged Yu Jian forward. Chapter 803. Not long after, the second wave of attacks arrived. It was still countless fire snakes mixed with attacks of various colors. Yu Jian was shocked. Both of his arms were grabbed, so he couldn't fight back. If the attacks landed on his real body, it would be fine if there were only a few of them, but if there were too many of them, he would have to use up a lot of energy. He repeatedly said, Let me go, the attacks are coming. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng let go, and then the 3 of them formed a triangle again, facing outwards. This way, they wouldn't be attacked from the back, and only needed to deal with the attacks from the front. With the strength of the 3 of them, they weren't afraid of the current restrictive spells. Without at least 10 waves of attacks, the 3 of them wouldn't be affected. Even the weakest, Yu Jian, would be able to hold on as long as he focused on dealing with the attacks in front of him. The second wave of attacks didn't last long, mainly because Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng's attacks were too sharp. When the second wave of attacks combined into a huge fire snake, Lei Xingfeng once again smashed it with a punch. Thus, the second wave of attacks came to an end. As for whether the other people who tried to break through the restrictions, Lei Xingfeng and the others didn't care. Lei Xingfeng smashed the fire snake with a punch and said, Let's go. Let's rush inside. As he said this, he grabbed Yu Dian's arm and dragged him forward. Xingfeng stepped forward and grabbed his other arm, and the 2 of them rushed forward together. Yu Dian's real body was extremely heavy. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng were powerful experts. Although it was difficult to drag him, the 3 of them were much faster. With Lei Xingfeng leading the way, the 3 of them were like 3 giant road rollers, madly rushing forward. They all hoped to go as far as possible before the next wave of attacks. The third wave of attacks took a long time to start. Lei Xingfeng waited for the 3 of them to stand firm again. He couldn't help but laugh and said, It seems like the people who came in are really ordinary. They blocked the second wave for so long. Hee hee, With this delay, the third wave of attacks will be here soon. This time, the attacks weren't fire snakes, but countless fireballs, arrow-like attacks, and some strange attacks. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't care. He relied on his powerful real body and didn't even bother to block the attacks, allowing them to land on his real body. Xingfeng and Yu Jian didn't dare to and could only block. After all, the attacks on their fists consumed much less energy than on their real bodies. Lei Xingfeng only swatted away the fireballs attacking his head. After testing it out, he was more and more confident in himself. He realized that his real body was really powerful. He didn't even use lightning, and just relied on his most basic real body to block all kinds of attacks. Gradually, the restriction attacks were all shattered. Bigger fireballs and stronger attacks were launched again, and the interval between each attack was less than 30 seconds. This time, Lei Xingfeng waved his fist and shattered the bigger fireballs. Xingfeng and Yu Jian continued to block. Xingfeng even said, "I wonder what the last attack will be this time." Yu Jian said, "The last attack, it better not be aimed at me." Sigh, I didn't expect to be the worst. I'm dragging everyone down. Xingfeng smiled and said, "If it's aimed at you, then you'll be responsible for shattering it." Yu Jian frowned and said, "Hey, you two are experts. Don't you feel embarrassed?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I've already shattered the last attack twice. It should be your turn now." Xingfeng said, "If it's aimed at me, then no problem. I'll be responsible. If it's aimed at you, then I won't care." Ha! The last attack that appeared was actually a strange thing. It didn't look like an insect, but it didn't look like an animal either. It was a very strange thing. Its body was covered in various colors, and it had 17 or 18 flame whips. It danced and danced as it rushed over. The three of them were dumbfounded as they looked at this monster-like thing. The reason why they were surprised was because this thing actually circled around them and then pounced towards Yu Jian. Yu Jian was furious. This was a classic example of bullying others. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng sneered unscrupulously. The attacks formed by restrictions would also choose the weaker target. Picking on the weaker target. If this was done by a human, then it would be fine. The key was that this attack was chosen by restrictions. This made Yu Jian go crazy. Yu Jian and the last attack of the restriction monster were about the same size. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng stood at the sides in tacit understanding. After all, Yu Jian was chained so he wouldn't be moved away by the restriction. It was also fun to see how he fought with the restriction monster. Lei Xingfeng could also use this opportunity to observe. Lei Xingfeng said, "Rainy, go." Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. Yu Jian was so angry that he howled. Then, he rushed towards the restriction monster and punched it. The restriction monster shot out a tentacle and hit Yu Dian's fist harshly. Boom! Then countless tentacles shot out. In an instant, Yu Jian was flustered. He blocked the top, but couldn't block the bottom. He was beaten until he was screaming. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is only the third wave, and its ability is already comparable to Rainey's. The fourth wave is a little troublesome." Xingfeng said, "Yes, this is only the third wave. Is it because of the other challengers that the restrictions' attack power increased to this extent?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "That's right. If another group of challengers comes, everyone will be in trouble." Xingfeng said, "That's not necessarily the case. Although there are many people here, the total number of people in the Fantasy Sky realm is still very small. It shouldn't be so coincidental." Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. "Don't they look when they're attacking? They're the elites among the elites. Don't they have this bit of knowledge?" Xingfeng said, "They're all arrogant people. They all think that they're very powerful. Only those who hang around here often will be vigilant. Forget it. Let's hurry up and destroy this monster. The most important thing is to hurry on." Lei Xingfeng agreed and said, "Together." Xingfeng said, "Okay." The two of them took a step forward at the same time and punched out at the same time. Yu Jian watched as the two of them attacked. With one hit, the restriction monster suddenly turned into sparks and disappeared in an instant. This made him extremely depressed. This was the difference between them. He was beaten until his head was full of bumps, but Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng killed it in one hit. This difference was really unbearable. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng dragged Yu Jian away. Yu Jian was still muttering, "Why are they so strong? Are they trying to kill me?" Yu Dian's heart was a little messy. Just now, he was actually confident that he could kill the restriction monster. However, it would take a lot of energy. The worst part was that it would consume a lot of energy. This made him not dare to make the decision. As a result, Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng directly attacked and killed the restriction monster in an instant. He was extremely regretful, but also thankful. This saved him a lot of energy. Lei Xingfeng turned to look at Yu Jian. He saw that this guy's face was full of conflict and looked very unhappy. According to Lei Xingfeng's understanding, this guy's face was the standard constipation look. Xingfeng saw this expression too. He could not help but laugh. "Why do you look like you're unwilling? We've already brought you along like this. Instead of thanking us, you look like you're unwilling. You're asking for a beating. Do you believe that we'll leave you here and let you walk on your own?" Yu Jian was completely terrified. He said, "I'm just conflicted. It's nothing. Don't bully me." Lei Xingfeng said, "What's there to be conflicted about? If you want to reach our level, then you have to train hard. What's the use of being envious?" These words were very domineering. It was as if he was lecturing his grandson. After saying that, Lei Xingfeng was very happy. It felt great to be able to teach a monarch realm expert a lesson. Yu Jian was not angry at all. After a while, he said, I will reach the Dao Saint realm sooner or later." Xingfeng chuckled and said, all right, your ambition is commendable. Continue to work hard." Lei Xingfeng also laughed and said, "Yes, good luck. I have high hopes for you." Yu Dian's face was red. He could not say that Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng were wrong. It was just that he felt uncomfortable listening to them. He secretly decided that he would train hard and reach the Dao Saint realm. When that time came, he would see what they had to say. As they ran, Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng ignored the normal attacks from the seals. When these attacks landed on their bodies, they had no effect at all. These attacks were used to deplete their energy. In truth, these attacks were useless against Lei Xingfeng. However, it was different for Xingfeng and Yu Jian. Both of them had to expend a certain amount of energy to replenish the energy used by their real bodies. Attacks of this level would expend less energy for Xingfeng and Yu Jian. Lei Xingfeng looked back from time to time. He dragged Yu Jian and said, "These two idiots are fighting among themselves." Xingfeng said, "That's impossible. At this time, even if they have a huge grudge against each other, they would have to put it aside and fight after we get out. How can there be such idiots?" Lei Xingfeng said, "They're probably being lured by the seals. They can't be that stupid." Being lured by the seals meant that each of them thought that the other was attacking them because of the seals. This was much more dangerous than being attacked by the seals. Cultivators had more tricks up their sleeves than being attacked by the seals. They were not as inflexible. Therefore, it was most dangerous for cultivators to fight each other within the seals. Xingfeng said, "Will they notice?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Unless both of them notice at the same time and stop fighting at the same time. Otherwise, if one of them notices and stops fighting, the other will continue to fight. What do you think they will do?" Yu Jian said, "Don't tell me they won't notice even if they see each other." Lei Xingfeng said, "If they see each other, they won't be fighting. They are more than 100 meters away from each other. Their attacks will be diverted by the seals and will land on the other person's real body. Fortunately, this seal is not abnormal. A truly abnormal seal can make you unable to recognize the other person even if you fight at close range." The three of them continued to run. Yu Jian said, "The fourth wave of attacks is coming, right? It's been a long time." Lei Xingfeng said, "It won't come for the time being." Xingfeng was puzzled. "Why not?" Chapter 804. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is all thanks to those two idiots. While they are fighting, the entire restriction has tacitly agreed to it. Therefore, the fourth restriction wave won't come unless the two of them decide a winner." Interesting. Let's hurry up. I seem to see something different. Perhaps there is a gap in the restriction. This sentence immediately lifted the spirits of the two. Especially Eugene, a rare smile appeared on his face. The restriction was giving him too much pressure. However, before they could run more than a kilometer, the fourth wave of attacks came. Eugene was flustered and exasperated. He said, "Didn't you say it wouldn't attack for now?" Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, "Those two idiots sensed something was wrong and separated. Therefore, the fourth wave of attacks came. It's nothing strange. They only noticed it after fighting for so long. Those two are really slow." Eugene said, Okay, let me go." Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng let go and looked at the fireballs and other attacks that gathered around them. This year, Yu Dian's real body was close to the two of them to reduce the area of attack. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng also moved away a little so that he could be protected. Xian Feng and Xingfeng were both able to handle the attacks with ease. Eugene was also able to handle it, but it was much more strenuous for him. After the first wave of attacks was shattered, the second wave would quickly gather and attack again. Then it would be shattered again. This cycle continued. This kind of attack was no longer a threat to Lei Xingfeng. If it was before, this kind of attack would be quite a headache. Among the three of them, Eugene was finding it more and more strenuous. This was because the attacks were becoming more and more concentrated. At the beginning, the attacks were scattered, but in the end, all of the attacks were gathered and turned into the most powerful attack. If one was strong enough, it would be fine. If one wasn't, it would be a real torture. In the end, the restriction formed another restriction monster. This time, Lei Xingfeng took the initiative to attack without waiting for it to attack. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go." The restriction will become crazier. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng grabbed Eugene again and rushed forward. Given the speed of the two of them, even if they were dragging the real body of another person, they would still move very quickly. Of course, the number of restriction nodes they would trigger would also be greater. Lei Xingfeng kept looking and said, "To the right." Xingfeng followed them to the right. As for Eugene, the two of them ignored him and dragged him along. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Okay, to the left." Eugene realized that Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng's coordination was extremely good. Xingfeng had already turned around the moment Lei Xingfeng shouted. He was still puzzled and couldn't help but ask, "Isn't it good to just keep going? Hurry up." Lei Xingfeng replied in a hurry, "It's hard to explain. You have to move as hard as you can. Don't let us drag you along." Xingfeng also said, "Don't think about saving energy. Keep up, or I will throw you out." Yu Dian's little trick was seen through, but he didn't feel ashamed. Of course, he didn't dare to let the two of them drag him along, so he followed along. Lei Xingfeng said, "There's a big difference between being one step faster and one step slower. If you delay even a little, you will be the unlucky one in the end, because you are the weakest." Eugene immediately understood and said, Sorry, I was careless." Lei Xingfeng said, "Hurry up, the fifth wave of attack won't be so easy to block." According to the strength of the previous attacks, after the first two waves of attack, the next two waves of attack would be stronger, and the third wave of attack would be more powerful. To avoid this wave of attack as much as possible, it all depended on whether Lei Xingfeng could find a gap in the restriction. In fact, Lei Xingfeng was already very anxious. He originally had a lot of confidence when the three of them broke through the array, but he didn't expect that there would be another person besides Hongba who broke through the array. The more restriction nodes were touched, the greater the backlash from the restriction. After two consecutive waves of restriction attacks, Lei Xingfeng sensed danger. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to consume energy and drag Xingfeng and Yu Jian as he rushed forward as fast as possible. The entire array was shaking, and the restriction nodes were moving crazily. Xingfeng and Yu Jian couldn't see this scene, but Lei Xingfeng could. This made him very nervous. He didn't know what the next wave of restriction attacks would be like. The only thing he knew was that the next wave of attack would definitely be different. Xingfeng also felt Lei Xingfeng's anxiousness, and he felt a chill in his heart. If this restriction attack could make Lei Xingfeng so nervous, then it must be very abnormal. Lei Xingfeng suddenly shouted, I see it. Hurry, it's in front. There's a gap in the restriction. Xingfeng used all his strength to drag Yu Jian and shouted, Yu Jian, don't hold back. Hurry, hurry, hurry. He said hurry 3 times in a row, showing his anxiousness. Yu Jian originally wanted to hold back, but he was frightened by Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng's tone. This time, he didn't dare to hold back and followed the two with all his strength. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng both felt that Yu Dian's true body was slightly lighter, and they knew that this fella had been holding back. Xingfeng glared at him fiercely. Lei Xingfeng didn't think too much. He just wanted to enter the gap in the restriction as soon as possible. That way, he could escape the restriction attack. Unfortunately, it was still too late. The 3 of them rushed for about 700 meters, and the 3rd and 5th wave of attacks appeared. Lei Xingfeng immediately stopped and shouted, Get ready! The attack is coming. Yu Jian said in despair, Why aren't we at a safe place yet? Xingfeng said, If it wasn't for you dragging us down, we would have arrived long ago. Lei Xingfeng said, Stop arguing. Get ready. We don't know what the attack will be like this time, so be careful. Among the 3 of them, only Lei Xingfeng could see through the restriction. Xingfeng and Yu Jian could only see a vast expanse of white land. There was nothing around them, and there was only fog in the distance. Even if they were very close to each other, they could only see each other's shadows. Lei Xingfeng said, It's coming. This time, it wasn't a fire snake, nor was it a fireball. It was a line of fire that was rapidly spreading from the distance. Yu Dian's legs began to tremble. Fire! Sea of fire! Lei Xingfeng said, Don't be nervous. It's just a sea of fire. Let's see what's in it. Xingfeng said, Calm down. Why are you trembling? Yu Jian didn't know why, but he actually felt afraid. He hadn't felt this way in a long time. He said, I'm not trembling. I'm just replenishing my energy. He had no choice but to argue otherwise. Lei Xingfeng wasn't confident either, but he wasn't afraid. This was the confidence brought by his second true ring body. Up until now, he was very satisfied with the performance of his true ring body. The flames were tens of meters high, and it looked like a tsunami. Lei Xingfeng began to adjust his position. He stood at the front, and Xingfeng was at his side. Yu Jian wanted to hide underground, but there was nowhere to hide. He could only brace himself and face the incoming sea of fire. Boom! Lei Xingfeng stood at the front. In an instant, the powerful flames suppressed him. Even with his second true ring body, he was still shaken by the impact. Xingfeng didn't dare to be like Xian Feng and use his true body to take it head-on. Instead, he continuously punched out, creating an opening in the incoming waves of flames, allowing the sea of flames to go around him. This way, he wouldn't have to take the attacks of the flames head-on. Yu Jian also frantically punched out, forcefully suppressing the impact of the flames. Luckily, Lei Xingfeng's true ring body was blocking, so the impact was relatively weak. He was able to safely pass through. The biggest function of this kind of fire wave was to blast people away. Once they moved their real body, the restriction would immediately teleport them to another place. If that was the case, they would have run for nothing, and it would be even more impossible to find a blank spot in the restriction. This was the danger of the fire. It didn't directly injure people, but it could teleport them away without them noticing. Unfortunately, they met an expert like Lei Xingfeng. If he didn't have his second true ring body, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't have been able to block it. Thus, this attack was useless against Lei Xingfeng. The entire ground became a sea of fire. If this was all, Lei Xingfeng and the others wouldn't have cared. But soon, all kinds of fire snakes came out of the sea of fire and surrounded the 3 of them. The 3 of them could deal with this level of attack. Lei Xingfeng was even more relaxed. The attacks were quickly swept away. Yu Jian smiled. It's not that serious. Xingfeng said, Shut up. Lei Xingfeng said, It won't end so easily. Get ready. The attack is about to begin. Yu Dian's face immediately turned bitter. He looked around and saw a huge animal stand up from the sea of fire. He said in shock, What's that? Lei Xingfeng saw it and couldn't help but be surprised. A bear. It looked like a bear. It was 100 meters tall, giant bear, and its whole body was covered in flames. Xing Feng hurriedly asked, "What kind of bear?" He had never seen this kind of beast before. Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a kind of beast from our hometown. It looks very similar." It was indeed very similar. In fact, this thing also looked very similar to a human. It was just that its limbs were extremely thick and its head was blurry. Thus, Lei Xingfeng felt that it looked like a giant bear. A giant flaming bear wasn't anything special. However, it wasn't just one giant flaming bear that rose from the sea of fire. Instead, many giant flaming bears appeared one after another. In less than a minute, 12 giant flaming bears had appeared. The three of them were dumbfounded. Yu Dian's legs went soft again. This time, it wasn't just his legs that were shaking. His whole body was shaking. Judging from the aura of the giant flaming bears, no matter how Yu Jian looked at it, each of the giant flaming bears was on par with him. He wasn't afraid of one giant flaming bear. He could even resist 2 giant flaming bears. However, with so many giant flaming bears appearing at once, he wanted to cry. There were too many of them. How could he fight them? Lei Xingfeng said, "We can't move our feet. Stabilize them. If we move, we might be teleported away by the restriction. If we are teleported away, I might not be able to find a second restriction spot to rest." He warned loudly. At the same time, he squatted down slightly. In an instant, his entire body was tightly connected to the ground. Yu Jian said, "Yes, I will try not to move." Chapter 805. Xing Feng said, "Don't try your best not to move. You definitely can't move. Do you think the steel chain can hold you back? When the time comes, if you move, you will be teleported away, and you won't be able to affect us. A steel chain can't even move us. When you're teleported away, we'll still be at the same spot, and no one will save you." Yu Jian was shocked. Initially, he did have this plan. If he really couldn't block it and want to move his feet, he would just move. There were 2 experts who would definitely hold him back. However, after hearing Xing Feng's words, he couldn't move no matter what. Actually, Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng's attitude was very clear. They warned him first. If he moved recklessly, the 2 of them would definitely not be implicated. The person who would be sent away by the restriction would be the moving person. The steel chain was only used to maintain the 3 people's position, and with the steel chain, they wouldn't be misled by the restriction. However, if the steel chain wanted to restrain the real person, it was basically a joke. No matter who it was, if they struggled slightly, the steel chain would break. This thing didn't have any restraints. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng weren't afraid of these huge fire bears, but they were worried about the situation after defeating the fire bears. Who knew how powerful these fire bears would be after they were defeated? Furthermore, it was obvious that these fire bears weren't completely of the fire element. Its body was obviously a combination of the earth and metal elements. Its toughness and strength were incomparable to the previous attacks. The 2 of them were on guard as they watched the fire bears surround them one by one. Lei Xingfeng said, "Rainy, you just have to block them. You don't have to defeat them." Yu Jian said, "Okay." He no longer had any room to bargain and could only hold on with all his might. Otherwise, if he couldn't block them, he would be the first to be unlucky. There was nowhere to hide. There was no way to dodge because he couldn't move at all. This made him extremely passive. 3 fire bears pounced towards Lei Xingfeng, but Lei Xingfeng remained motionless. He threw out a punch towards the fastest fire bear. His huge fist went straight for the fire bear's head. That fire bear waved its huge flaming claws and fiercely swept across, trying to swat away Lei Xingfeng's fist. Lei Xingfeng roared, "Kill!" His fist suddenly sped up and rushed out like a meteor. The fire bear's huge claw slapped Lei Xingfeng's arm, but couldn't shake this extremely thick arm at all. A fist landed on the fire bear's huge head. Boom! The entire ground shook, and the fire bear couldn't block this attack at all. With one punch, the fire bear's huge head exploded, and its huge body collapsed immediately. The other 2 fire bears let out a strange roar. This sound was like the roar of burning flames. The two fire bears' huge claws slapped Lei Xingfeng's real body harshly. Lei Xingfeng's entire body suddenly flashed, and a bolt of lightning rolled down along his real body. Instantly, the two fire bears were hit by the lightning until they were stiff and trembling. Lei Xingfeng took this opportunity to grab one of the fire bear's thick and short necks, one in each hand. As Lei Xingfeng's real body's huge hands and the fire bear's height were only half of his real body's height, his two hands, one in each hand, violently collided with the fire bear's heads. Boom! In an instant, the two fire bears' heads shattered, and then their entire bodies collapsed. Xingfeng had only just thrown out his first punch when he saw Lei Xingfeng destroy 3 fire bears from the corner of his eye. That speed was simply terrifying, and his attacks were even sharper. He couldn't help but shout, "Good!" He also threw out a punch, and it collided with the fire bear's claw. This attack knocked the fire bear away. The fire bear roared, and half of its huge claw was destroyed. However, this was different from smashing the fire bear's head. The fire bear retreated a few steps, and its claw quickly recovered, and another fire bear rushed forward. Yu Jian, on the other hand, was having a hard time. Although he shamelessly hid his true body between Xian Feng and Xingfeng's true body, and because his true body was the smallest, he was able to hide there. However, he still had to face the incoming gigantic fire bear, and he had to face 2 fire bears. Every time he was hit by a fire bear's claw, he had to expend a large amount of energy to repair his real body and prevent it from collapsing. This way, his energy would be spent on his real body, and the power of his attacks would be much weaker. Currently, he could only repel the fire bears, but he couldn't kill them. Even if he could repel the fire bears, Yu Jian had to expend a large amount of energy in the seal, and this made it very difficult for him. Xingfeng saw an opportunity and threw 2 punches at the head of a fire bear. Only then did he eliminate the fire bear. Lei Xingfeng had already killed the 4th fire bear. As long as a fire bear entered his attack range, it was basically impossible for it to retreat. The fire bears were almost destroyed in one hit. The fire bears simply couldn't block Lei Xingfeng's attacks. In addition, Lei Xingfeng would occasionally release lightning, which slowed down the fire bear's movements. This made his attacks extremely efficient. Yu Jian was having a hard time resisting. Fortunately, when he saw Lei Xingfeng killing the fire bears with 1 punch, he felt much better. He knew that at this speed, Lei Xingfeng would be able to kill all the fire bears very quickly. Xingfeng could occasionally kill a fire bear, but Yu Jian was completely unable to do so. It wasn't easy for him to persist until now. His cultivation was still too low. With his cultivation, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to survive in an ordinary restriction array. Moreover, as long as he spent a certain amount of time and energy, he would be able to break out. However, in this type of restriction array, it was impossible for him to survive. If it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng, this wave of fire bears' attacks would have left him in a miserable state. Lei Xingfeng discovered that the fire bears couldn't shake his true body at all. He let go of his limbs and even grabbed a fire bear with both hands and tore it apart. This move almost scared Xingfeng. Xingfeng was a little unwilling. He also tried to tear apart a fire bear. However, he didn't manage to tear it apart. Instead, he was hit by the fire bear's huge head, which almost knocked him away. Relying on Lei Xingfeng's true body, he stabilized his true body. He was so angry that he roared and punched 3 times in a row, smashing the fire bear's head into pieces. Soon, all the fire bears in front of Lei Xingfeng were swept away. Due to his huge true body, Lei Xingfeng was tall and had long arms. He twisted his body and stretched out one of his arms, grabbing the fire bear that was attacking Yu Jian and dragging it away. His other hand clenched into a fist and smashed down. With a loud bang, the fire bear was completely destroyed. Yu Jian was originally having a hard time. The 2 fire bears came and went, tormenting him to the point where he wanted to die. He couldn't hide. He could only face them head-on. This kind of battle made him feel so stifled that he wanted to vomit blood. Suddenly, Xian Feng took away a fire bear, allowing him to relax. Xingfeng also turned his body. He didn't dare to move his feet, but he could still twist his body. He grabbed the fire bear's huge claw and shouted, "Hit its head. It's useless to hit other places." This was the last fire bear. Yu Jian said, "Okay," and punched. Boom, boom, boom. Lei Xingfeng turned his head and couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He saw Xingfeng grabbing the upper claw of a fire bear. Yu Jian also grabbed the claw with one hand, while his other hand was clenched into a fist. Like beating a drum, he violently smashed the fire bear's head, causing sparks to fly. The fire bear roared continuously, but it couldn't smash its head. Yu Jian was so anxious that he cried out. Xingfeng was also anxious. He said, "Can you do it?" Up until now, Yu Jian hadn't killed a single fire bear. Lei Xingfeng turned his body. Due to his height and long arms, it was easy for him to reach it. He punched down from above and shouted, "Let go!" Xingfeng and Yu Jian let go at the same time. Lei Xingfeng's fist landed on the fire bear's head. Boom! Flowers scattered like fireworks. It was truly a riot of colors. One punch was enough to shatter the fire bear. Yu Jian was a little embarrassed. He said, "Thanks a lot, he." Xingfeng shook his head helplessly. He knew that bringing this guy along was really a burden. Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't move. There's still the next wave." Yu Jian was starting to regret entering this place. He didn't expect the restrictions here to be so abnormal. He had just arrived and was already in such a sorry state. If he went deeper, who knew what he would encounter? After hesitating for a moment, Yu Jian said, "If the restrictions calm down, can I charge out?" Xingfeng said, "Charge out? Charge out to where?" Lei Xingfeng said, "You can. You can use the secret door to locate it. You should be able to charge out." He immediately understood that this guy wanted to retreat and didn't dare to advance. Xingfeng also understood now. He nodded and said, "Indeed. It will be too difficult for you to enter again. When the restrictions are strong enough, we might not be able to take care of you. It's good to retreat." Yu Jian said, "Use the secret door to locate it? What kind of method is that?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a small trick. The restrictions will confuse you and make you go around in circles, unable to find the way out. If you use the secret door to locate it, you will at least know which direction to charge out. Well, generally speaking, the secret door can't be used in the restrictions, but you can use it to locate the direction." Yu Jian said, "So that's how it is." "Okay, I understand." Lei Xingfeng said, "Now is not the time. Wait until we reach the empty spot in the restrictions. Wait until all of us enter and let the restrictions calm down. Then you can charge out. You have to be fast. Once the fire bear comes out, you will be in big trouble." Yu Jian smiled bitterly and said, "I know. I can't stop it." Xingfeng said, "Well, it's normal that you can't stop it. In my opinion, this formation is ranked at the top even in the fantasy sky realm. It's definitely powerful." Yu Jian said, "Yes, I have never seen such a powerful restriction. It's simply not letting me live. Each wave is stronger than the last. The most painful thing about this attack is that I can't dodge or move. I have to face it head on. Even if I have combat skills, it's useless." Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course, once you move, you will be in big trouble. The consequence of not being able to get out is to be tortured to death by the restrictions." Yu Jian said, "So, after thinking about it, I think it's better to leave. Otherwise, I will be a burden to you all." He said sincerely. Lei Xingfeng said, "Well, it's not that we don't want to protect you. Once we can't handle it, even if we want to protect you, it will be too late." Yu Jian was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. Xingfeng said, "It's here. The preparation time is quite long. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."